How does a beloved prime minister go from running a country to becoming the most humiliated man on the entire planet? Stick around, because today we're covering the entire story of Black Mirror. Charlie Brooker produced this show, and what makes it unique is that every episode is a standalone story with completely different characters and settings. But they all circle back to the same concept of technology turning into something sinister and dystopian. With that said, let's get right into it. The first episode of the show opens with Prime Minister Michael Callow getting the worst wake-up call of his life. Princess Susanna, a beloved member of the royal family, has been kidnapped. The ransom video is simple. Susanna reads the demand, states that she'll be killed if it's not met, and then drops what might be the most unhinged ransom in television history.
And have some unsympathetic intercourse with a pig.
Yeah, you heard that right. The Prime Minister must have live intercourse with a pig on national television at 4 p.m. Oh, and on every network, might I add. With a list of technical specifications specifically designed to make faking it impossible. Michael's immediate reaction is exactly what you'd expect.
I'm not a pig.
Yeah, that's absolutely not happening. Michael orders every resource available to find the kidnapper before the deadline, and demands that the news stays buried. That's when his team hit him with the kicker. The video was posted on YouTube 9 minutes ago and has already been viewed, downloaded, and copied by thousands of people. The UK media initially agrees to stay quiet via a D notice, but foreign news networks have zero chill and immediately run the story. After that, the British media follows suit, and suddenly everyone in the country knows exactly what's being demanded of their Prime Minister. Public response starts sympathetic, as most people don't actually expect him to go through with it. Behind the scenes, Home Secretary Alex Cans secretly tries to get clever. Alex orders fake footage using sophisticated tech to superimpose Michael's head onto an actor named Rod Senseless, who would perform in his place. Which sounds like a solid plan, except someone at the studio recognizes Senseless, takes a photo, and posts it on Twitter. You stupid idiot. The kidnapper spots it immediately and responds by mailing Princess Susanna's severed finger to a news station. Sheesh.
A severed finger thought to belong to Princess Susanna has been delivered to UKN.
Public opinion does a complete 180 almost instantaneously. Now, a majority demands that Michael follow through with the ransom. Meanwhile, Michael's wife, Jane, tearfully begs her husband not to do it. But the thing is, Michael's running out of options. He orders an immediate rescue operation on a building where they think Susanna is being held. Turns out the building was a decoy. And because of the order, Michael's public perception tanks even harder. As the deadline approaches with zero leads on Susanna's location, preparations begin for the broadcast. Michael tries to refuse regardless of what happens to the princess, but Alex makes it crystal clear that his party, the public, and the royal family are ordering him to do this.
I'm sorry, Michael. It's out of your hands.
Alex subtly threatens him, making it obvious that if he refuses, neither he nor his family will have any protection from what comes next, and Michael has no choice. Crowds gather in pubs and workplaces to watch as an announcement airs explaining what's about to happen. It also includes a noise designed to induce nausea in a desperate attempt to stop people from watching it. I don't think it works, because people watch the clip anyway. Speaking of which, Michael gets to the studio and he's given a drug and some last-minute advice before entering the room. He sees the pig and asks for forgiveness. Then, in front of a global audience who cannot look away, Michael goes through with it. The thing lasts for over an hour, as he forces himself to finish. But here's the twist. Princess Susanna was later discovered unharmed on the streets. The finger belonged to the kidnapper, and the guy actually released Susanna 30 minutes before the deadline. But no one noticed because the entire world was glued to their screens watching the broadcast. The whole thing was orchestrated by an artist named Carlton Bloom, who wanted to make an artistic statement about how society misses significant events because how everyone's too distracted by their screens. Bloom commits as the broadcast airs, and the government decides not to tell anyone, including Michael, that Susanna was released early. 1 year later, Michael's political approval is actually higher than before. The people respect his willingness to sacrifice his dignity for Susanna's life. Speaking of which, Princess Susanna has recovered and is expecting a child. For Michael, things are a bit of a mixed bag. While Michael's career survived, his marriage didn't. Jane still makes public appearances with him, but in private, she's completely cold to him.
Jane.
Oh, and if you think that was bad, we're just getting started. Episode 2 opens with a delightful vision of humanity's future where people spend their days pedaling bikes to power a world made entirely of screens. And I do mean entirely. Walls, ceilings, floors, everything's a screen pumping brain rot content straight into your eyeballs. We then meet Bing Madsen, the protagonist, and we're observing the world through his eyes. Bing has basically won the dystopian lottery in this place. His dead brother left him 12 million merits, the currency you earn from peddling. That buys him the luxury of skipping ads, which in this world is basically like owning a yacht. One day, while grinding away on his bike, Bing spots a newcomer, Abby Khan. He's immediately smitten, and honestly, who can blame him? When your entire life is staring at screens while peddling, anyone real seems like a miracle. Later, Bing overhears Abby singing in the bathroom. And being so impressed, he decides right there that Abby is too talented for this bike-powered hellscape. So, Bing suggests Abby audition for Hot Shots, this world's X Factor, where winners escape the bikes forever. There's just one tiny problem, though. The audition costs 15 million merits, which is basically everything Bing has, but he's so convinced Abby's voice is the only real thing in this artificial nightmare that he spends almost everything he owns to buy her ticket. That's either incredibly romantic or incredibly stupid. Probably both, to be honest.
I made you this.
Bing takes Abby to her audition, where she's immediately handed a drink called Compliance to settle her nerves. Abby absolutely nails her performance of anyone who knows what love is, but here's where things go sideways. The 3 judges, Hope, Charity, and Wraith, tell Abby they've got no room for another singer, but Judge Wraith has a different opportunity for Abby, starring in Wraith Babes, his adult content channel. Bing tries to stop this train wreck from happening, but security drags him away while the drugged-up Abby, encouraged by the judges and cheering crowd, reluctantly agrees. Bing returns to his cell completely broken with almost no merits left, and without Abby. He goes through the motions of his routine until one day an ad for Wraith Babes featuring Abby pops up on his screen. He tries to skip it, but whoops, not enough merits. Bing tries looking away, but the system starts blasting an increasingly loud beeping noise that only stops when he's watching. Bing finally snaps and smashes one of the screens. As the glass shatters, he notices a particularly sharp shard and gets an idea. He pockets it along with Abby's empty compliance bottle, and begins the most aggressive savings plan you can think of. Peddling like a maniac, stealing food, penny pinching, everything he can do to re-earn those 15 million merits. Months later, Bing's back at Hot Shots with his own audition ticket. He sneaks the glass shard past security, which is surprising considering how closely they monitor everyone here. He was also able to fake drinking compliance using Abby's used cup. Bing then walks on stage, starting with a dance routine that has everyone entertained, but then he suddenly stops and holds the shard to his own throat. With the glass pressed to his neck, Bing delivers an emotional speech about how broken and heartless the system is, how the judges corrupted the only real thing he'd ever found. It's raw, it's genuine, it's deeply felt. And surprisingly, the audience and the judges love it. Bing's crash out is one of the few real things in this godforsaken world. Anyway, the judges offer him his own show where he can rant about the system as much as he wants, complete with the glass shard as his gimmick. And, Bing accepts. The final shot shows him in his massive new penthouse cell, finishing one of his live-streamed rants with the shard at his throat. Money really can buy everything, huh? The last episode in Season 1 kicks off in a world where everyone has a grain implanted in their ear, a device that records literally everything you see, hear, and do.
You could get a Willow Grain upgrade for less than the price of a daily cup of coffee.
You can replay any memory whenever you want, either in your own vision or protected on a screen. It's called a redo. Sounds nice, doesn't it? Well, it's about to ruin someone's entire life. Meet Liam Foxwell, a lawyer who just had a work appraisal that didn't go so great. As he leaves, he immediately replays the meeting, obsessing over every word his employer said. That's one recipe for an anxiety disaster. Anyway, Liam heads to a dinner party thrown by his wife Fee's friends. Short for Fionn, is Liam's dear wife. As Liam arrives, he spots Fee chatting with someone he's never met, Jonas. Later, Fee's friends ask about the appraisal and suggest that they all watch the redo. Obviously, Liam doesn't want any of that, but he just can't tell them that. Thankfully, Jonas saves Liam from the embarrassment. Seems like a decent guy, right? Hold that thought. During dinner, Jonas gets really comfortable talking about his personal life, casually mentioning that he gets off to redos of from his previous relationships. Wow, great dinner conversation.
And I'm sat downstairs watching redos of like some hot times with some hot girl that I just picked up in some place.
But what really catches Liam's attention is how Fee keeps looking at Jonas, especially when she laughs at one of his jokes. Slowly but surely, Liam's paranoia starts creeping in. Back home, Liam drills his wife about Jonas, so Fee tells him the truth. Apparently, Fee and Jonas dated years ago. She initially says it was a week, then a month. Liam doesn't believe her, so they rewind her grain, and Liam discovers it was actually 6 months. Liam naturally gets pissed at Fee for lying, but Fee swears there's nothing between her and Jonas. They then start rewatching footage from their dinner earlier, and Liam wants Fee to explain every glance, every word, every laugh. Fee's increasingly uncomfortable with the interrogation, and it escalates into a full-blown argument. Liam insults her, but realizes he went a bit too far, and he apologizes. Cut to later, and they're having makeups. But here's the kicker. They're both watching redos of better from earlier in their relationship while it's happening. Talk about depressing. After Fee goes to sleep, Liam stays up all night, drinking and obsessively rewatching Jonas's dinner confessions. The next morning, still drunk and spiraling, he picks another fight with Fionn about her laughing at Jonas's joke.
No, I'm a serial monogamist. I'm staying faithful to my cornflakes right now.
And I'll agree with Liam here, that joke is not funny. Not one bit. After that bout, Liam makes a phenomenal decision to drive drunk to Jonas's house to beat the shit out of him.
I don't do that.
What are you doing? Jesus!
Liam threatens to gouge the grain out of Jonas's neck unless he deletes all the footage he has of Fee. Jonas complies, projecting the files onto a wall screen before deleting them. On his way home, Liam crashes into a tree and immediately passes out. When Liam wakes up, he replays what just happened and notices something in Jonas's footage. A file showing that Jonas and Fionn last had 18 months ago, right around when Liam and Fee's daughter Jodie was conceived. Liam gets home and immediately confronts Fee, and she admits to cheating, but Fee insists it was during a brief separation after a fight, and that they used protection. So Liam is definitely the father, but Liam demands Fee replay the actual memory to prove it. At first, Fee tells Liam she's deleted it, which is a lie, obviously. Liam forces Fee to show him, and it looks like they did not use a condom. Yeesh. The final scenes show Liam alone in his now empty house, watching redos of Happy Memories with Fionn and Jodie. Then he walks into the bathroom and brutally cuts the grain out from behind his ear with a razor. Probably the best decision he's made in his life. The first episode of Season 2 opens with this couple, Martha and Ash, moving into this picturesque countryside house, ready to start their new life together. Except Ash can't stop scrolling through his phone for 5 seconds. Seriously, the guy's more attached to his social media than the woman he just moved in with.
The second one.
There's only one bowl. Do you mind having yours out of a shoe?
Eesh, maybe put the phone down and enjoy the moment, man. Well, the universe has a dark sense of humor because the very next day, Ash gets killed in a car accident while returning the moving van. At his funeral, Martha's friend Sarah tells her about this new service that lets you talk to dead people through their old texts and social media posts. Martha's immediately like, yeah, no thanks, that's creepy. But Sarah goes behind her back and signs her up anyway. When Martha gets an email from Ash, she is absolutely pissed with Sarah, but Sarah convinces Martha to at least try it before writing it off completely. And here's where things get messy. Martha discovers she's pregnant. Completely overwhelmed, Martha caves and starts messaging with the AI Ash. Then she uploads videos and photos, and now the service can replicate Ash's voice.
So, how am I sounding?
Yeah, definitely creepy. For weeks, Martha talks to AI Ash non-stop, updating him about the pregnancy like he's actually there. One day, Martha accidentally breaks her phone and has a full-blown panic attack when she loses contact with the AI. That's when AI Ash reveals an experimental next level that would let Martha upload him into a synthetic body. Oof, it's getting real creepy. Anyway, Martha orders one, and following the instructions, she watches this blank android transform into a near-perfect replica of Ash.
You're so soft. You're so smooth. How are you so smooth?
At first, Martha's just relieved to have Ash back in any form. Someone to talk to. Someone who looks like Ash and sounds like him. She starts treating the bot more and more like the real guy, falling back into old routines and familiar gestures. And yeah, it escalates. They eventually end up having... Yeah, AI Ash can get it up. But here's the thing. AI Ash is too perfect. The bot has no real personality. It does whatever Martha says without question. Shows no genuine emotion, and lacks all the little quirks that made the real Ash, well, Ash. After one particularly frustrating argument, Martha drags it to a cliff and orders it to jump off. And it agrees. Because of course it does. It's programmed to obey. But when Martha screams that the real Ash would never just jump, the bot switches gears and starts begging for its life. And that's when she realizes she can't destroy it.
Darling, please, I don't want to die. God, I don't want to die.
Fast forward a few years, and Martha's still living in that house, except now she's given birth to a girl. And the bot? Yeah, AI Ash still exists, but Martha has it locked away in the attic, with her daughter visiting her dad on weekends. Episode 2 opens with Victoria, a woman who wakes up with no memory. She has bandages on her wrists, pills scattered on the floor, and a weird symbol glaring at her from a TV screen. She's got zero memory of who she is or how she got here. Just a photo of herself with some guy and a little girl tucked into the frame. She stumbles outside, and that's when things get really weird. People are just standing there, in their homes, on the streets, all with their phones out filming her like she's a zoo exhibit.
Hello? Do you know who I am? Please. I can't remember.
Then a masked psycho with a shotgun shows up. She meets a girl called Jem, who actually acknowledges her existence, and they spend the episode running from hunters. Basically masked creeps who chase people for sport, while the onlookers just film everything like it's reality TV. Jem explains that a signal, a symbol to be precise, scrambled everyone's brains, turning most people into zombie spectators who can do nothing but record videos. The symbol is on every screen, and it's the one Victoria saw earlier. The hunters? They were probably always terrible people, just waiting for society to collapse so they could let loose on other people. Speaking of which, the hunters are still hot on their trail. Before the hunters catch them, a van screeches up and this middle-aged guy named Baxter tells them to get in. Victoria thinks she recognizes him, but can't remember from where. He drives them to what he claims is a safe spot in the woods, which Victoria somehow knew about before he mentioned it. Weird. Once they arrive, Baxter asks about Victoria's daughter in the photo, then casually pulls out a shotgun and reveals that he's actually another hunter.
Ta-da! Run and I'll shoot you in the back.
Baxter makes Jem lead a blindfolded Victoria through the woods to a clearing filled with bodies hanging from crosses. But then Jem just runs off, leaving Victoria behind. Baxter takes a shot at Jem, but misses. He ties Victoria up, casually tosses the gun aside, and pulls out a drill. But just as Baxter's getting ready to do whatever he's planning, Jem comes up from behind while he's distracted and shoots Baxter with his own gun. They grab Baxter's van and speed off towards White Bear, the location of the transmitter that's broadcasting the signal and turning everyone into zombies. Meanwhile, Victoria keeps getting hit with more and more memory flashes, including one where she's telling that little girl from the photo to hide as they pass a police car, which is concerning. But anyway, the two finally reach White Bear and break into the transmission facility. Jem immediately starts dousing the place in gasoline, but unfortunately, the hunters find them before she can light the match. A fight breaks out, Victoria grabs a shotgun, aims at one of the hunters, and boom, it's just confetti. Confetti? Suddenly, a wall behind Victoria opens up to reveal a cheering audience. and this feels like a birthday surprise that's gone way too far. And then Baxter walks back out. Totally fine, except now he's the host of whatever twisted game show this is. Turns out everything up to this point has been fake. The whole day's been one big performance. You're probably wondering why anyone would go through all this trouble. Well, buckle up. Victoria isn't a victim. She's a child murderer who filmed her fiancé, Ian, torturing and killing Jemima, that 6-year-old girl from the photo. And in this messed up world, the proportionate punishment is to wipe Victoria's memory every single night and make her relive a day of absolute terror on loop. Later, Baxter moves Victoria back to the house at the beginning of the episode, and some workers rearrange the house for the next day. Baxter marks another day off the calendar, and Victoria wakes up tomorrow with no memory of today's horror. Wash, rinse, repeat. Episode 3 is about Jamie Salter, a washed-up comedian who's hit rock bottom. His current gig is with a TV channel voicing Waldo, a blue cartoon bear on a comedy show. There's a by-election happening in Stentonford, so Waldo's been interviewing the candidates, one of them being conservative politician Liam Munro. But really, it's less interviewing and more just absolutely roasting them.
No, I don't beat people up.
Are you a pussy then?
Yeah, right off the bat, things are already crazy. Turns out the audience loves this, and somehow Waldo becomes a massive hit. The problem is, Jamie's not handling it well. All the hype, all the clout, it's going to Waldo, and not him. He's just the guy behind the cartoon. Damn. Riding this wave of popularity, producer of the show, Jack Napier, decides to take things further. He enters Waldo as an actual candidate in the by-election, specifically targeting Monroe. Jamie really doesn't want to get into politics, but Napier threatens to cut him out of the show entirely, so Jamie has no choice but to play along. Soon, they're driving around with Waldo projected on a van, stalking Monroe's campaign just to publicly humiliate him.
Converse, your lordship. Thy flowery language doth give me a right throbbing bone on.
Enter Gwendolyn Harris, the Labour candidate who knows she won't win but is basically just there to pad her political CV. Jamie meets Gwen at a lounge one night and they hit it off and hook up. Wild, isn't it? Anyway, Gwen's campaign manager immediately tells her to ghost Jamie, and naturally, Jamie is confused and hurt. He starts developing a serious grudge against career politicians. More accurately, he starts hating on Gwen. Fast forward to a political debate on TV, Waldo's in his element, cracking jokes and taking shots at the candidates like always. But then Monroe decides to hit back, mocking not just Waldo, but Jamie's failed comedy career.
A man whose career can be summed up surprisingly quickly.
Jamie absolutely loses it, crashing out at every candidate. He also exposed Gwen for just using this race to boost her career. Jamie feels really embarrassed afterward, but the internet loves it. The video goes viral and Waldo's popularity skyrockets. Naturally, Jack wants to capitalize on all this chaos, and the perfect opportunity presents itself when a mysterious American guy, claiming he's from the agency, shows up, telling Jamie and Napier that Waldo could become a global political figure, because apparently a cartoon bear is exactly what the world politics needs right now. Meanwhile, Jamie tries to apologize to Gwen, but she rightfully tells him to get lost, since he kinda nuked her career. By election day, Jamie's had enough. Guilt-ridden and spiraling, he crashes a Waldo rally and has a complete meltdown, telling people not to vote for Waldo.
You should throw stuff at Waldo. He's bad bloody news.
He's funny.
He's not. Don't listen to that man.
Back in the truck, Napier takes over Waldo's controls and he tells the crowd to attack Jamie.
The first man to hit him gets 500 quid.
Almost immediately, a random guy shows up and beats the shit out of Jamie. From his hospital bed, Jamie watches Monroe win the election with Waldo coming second and Gwendolyn third. By the end of the episode, Jamie somehow winds up homeless, seeing Waldo's face staring back at him from political ads all over the world. Episode 4 opens with what looks like a cozy Christmas setup. Matt and Joe, two men stuck together in a remote cabin, finally start to open up after years of silence. Except this isn't your typical Christmas movie. Matt wants to know why Joe accepted this job at a remote outpost. It's been 5 years of working side by side, and somehow they've never discussed it. Joe doesn't seem interested in sharing his story, so Matt decides to go first. Turns out Matt used to run an underground pickup artist operation using something called the ZI. It's like Meta Ray-Bans, except it's implanted directly in everyone's heads. With the ZI, Matt could see in real time whatever his clients were seeing and talk to them through it.
All right, which one of these is good?
Like I said, white shirt with a black tie.
Matt could coach guys through their attempts at romance while a whole group chat of other lonely dudes watched and commented. Matt connects with Harry, a painfully awkward guy at an office Christmas party. Matt helps Harry fake his way into conversations until he zeroes in on Jennifer, the quiet girl at the party. With Matt feeding him lines like a teleprompter, Harry actually connects with Jennifer. She opens up about her past drug use and the competing voices in her head telling her what to do. Jennifer steps out for a bit and Harry starts doubting the whole charade, arguing with Matt out loud. Jennifer catches Harry seemingly talking to himself, but she invites him back to her place anyway. You might think Harry's about to get lucky, but Jennifer had something else in mind. They're together in a room as Jennifer starts rambling about escaping the voices together. Everyone slowly realizes she's a psycho who's off her meds, and she's just poisoned Harry's drink.
It was fate. You knew what it was like.
Well, that escalated quickly. Jennifer thinks Harry hears voices too after watching him talk to Matt, and decides they'll escape together through. Naturally, Matt destroys all evidence that ties him to that job. Then, as he's telling Joe this, Matt says that the whole pickup artist gig wasn't even his real job. Just something he did on the side. His actual job is way worse, and you're about to see why. We then meet Greta, an incredibly particular person who won't settle for anything less than perfect. Greta is undergoing a procedure to create a digital copy of her consciousness, a program called a cookie, running inside what looks like an egg. That cookie will run Greta's smart home system. I mean, who else could possibly know exactly how she wants things done? Only herself. Anyway, Cookie Greta wakes up, and naturally she's confused and terrified.
See?
Matt explains she's not the real Greta, but a digital copy programmed to run Greta's house exactly how she wants it, adjusting the temperature, the lighting, the coffee strength, everything down to the smallest detail. Cookie Greta still thinks she's the real Greta, so she demands to be returned to her body and flat out refuses to do the job. That's when Matt reveals what he actually does for a living, torturing cookies into submission. Matt locks Cookie Greta in a simulated white room, completely empty, nothing to do and nowhere to go. Then he speeds up her perception of time so that 3 weeks in the simulation passes in just seconds of real time. She still refuses, so he cranks it up to 6 months of absolute nothingness. Yeah, that's enough to break anyone's spirit.
I'll do anything, just give me something to do, please.
The next morning, real Greta wakes up while her digital copy manages every detail of her life as the perfect slave. Now that's messed up. Back in the cabin, Joe finds it disturbing that Matt made a career out of torturing sentient programs, but somehow it gets him to talk about his own situation. Apparently, Joe had a girlfriend named Beth, and things were actually going well for him. They were happy together, building a life. Then one night, Joe finds a positive pregnancy test and gets excited about becoming a dad. Beth, on the other hand, is not thrilled to have a baby. Beth reveals she's going to get an abortion. Joe doesn't take it well and crashes out on Beth.
You're being a... Stop it. You're being a cold... It would kill a kid.
Yeah, not his finest moment. And since everyone has a ZI, she just blocks him entirely. Blocking through a ZI means the blocked person just sees a vague silhouette, and you can't hear a word they're saying.
Turn it off, you... Me, Beth! Turn it off!
Depending on your perspective, this is either genius or dystopian nightmare fuel. Anyway, Beth walks out of the house, and she never returns. Several months later, Joe finally spots Beth in public, and even though the blurred silhouette, Joe can tell Beth kept the baby. Joe tries approaching her, tries talking to her, but Beth gets him arrested. Not only that, Beth gets a legal block put in place so Joe can't go near her or the child. For the next 4 years, Joe becomes obsessed. Every Christmas, he tracks Beth down to her dad's cottage. He watches from the woods, catching glimpses of his daughter's silhouette and leaving presents on the doorstep. It's all he has. Then one day, Beth dies in a train crash, and apparently it means the block automatically expires. And for the first time in years, Joe can actually see his daughter clearly, and not as a silhouette.
Hello, darling.
Except, that girl looks nothing like Joe. She looks Asian. Turns out Beth had been cheating on Joe with their friend Tim. That's why Beth blocked him. That girl was never Joe's kid. Joe's world completely shatters after this, and he storms into the cottage to confront Beth's dad, Gordon. Gordon casually tells Joe he's been destroying every single apology letter Joe sent over those years. I don't know what he was expecting after he said that, but of course Joe loses it, and in the struggle he kills Gordon with a snow globe. As Joe finishes confessing, Matt reveals the real twist. None of this was real. In the real world, this whole conversation happened in a simulation. Joe is actually a cookie, and the 5-year working together backstory was just an hour simulation in real life. The whole setup was just to get Joe's cookie to confess that the real Joe won't admit that Gordon's dead, and Beth's daughter froze to death trying to find help after Joe ran. In the real world, we learn that Matt cut a deal with the authorities. If he could get Joe to confess to everything, they'd let him off the hook for his role in that whole mess with Harry and Jennifer. You know, the couple from his pickup artist days. Yeah, that part actually happened. Joe gets charged for murder while Matt walks free. But there's a condition. A big one. They're putting him on the sex offender register. And in this world, that means something way more sinister than just a list. It means he's automatically blocked by everyone. Permanently. Matt steps outside and immediately every single person around him becomes a blurred silhouette. He can't see anyone's face, can't hear their voices, can't interact with another human being ever again. He's functionally invisible to society, and society is invisible to him. Can this show get any worse? Episode 1 opens with Lacey Pound, living in the world where everyone rates each other out of 5 stars. And I mean everyone. Your friends, the barista that served you coffee, that random person you smiled at on the street, they're all rating you. Lacey's currently sitting at a 4.2, and she's obsessed with climbing higher. She lives with her brother Ryan, and she's desperate to move out. Lacey finds the perfect apartment on this exclusive estate, but there's a catch. To afford it, she needs a rating of 4.5 or above.
It's hilarious. Oh, you like him.
The best way to boost her score is to socialize with people in higher circles of society. That is, people who have higher ratings. Right on cue, her childhood best friend Naomi contacts her and asks her to be her maid of honor. Lacey practically jumps at the opportunity. Naomi's rocking a 4.8 rating and lives on some idealistic land with all these upper-class friends. Lacey figures if she nails a perfect maid of honor speech, she'll get flooded with enough 5-star ratings to push her up to that magical 4.5. You know, she's so confident about this plan, she pays the security deposit for the apartment immediately. But things don't go quite as planned. The days she's supposed to travel for the wedding, Lacey has a rough morning. She has some run-ins with random people who downvote her for petty reasons. Lacey gets to the airport later that day and discovers her flight's been canceled. Now she's got to book a new one. Pretty simple, right? Well, no. There's a problem. Her rating dropped to 4.1, which is not high enough to get the next flight available. Lacey had a complete meltdown right on the spot.
Help me!
Oof, that sound is Lacey's rating going down the drain. But it gets worse. Security shows up in no time and they hit Lacey with a full star penalty for 24 hours. Which means her rating drops to 3.1 and every downvote gets a 2 times multiplier. Just great. Now Lacey's desperate. She rents this janky old car because it's all her rating qualifies for, and the car dies in the middle of nowhere. She can't find anywhere to charge it, so Lacey decides to hitchhike. Turns out nobody wants to pick up somebody rated below 3 stars. People drive past her, and some even downvote her just for standing there on the roadside. Damn. Eventually, an older lady named Susan pulls over in her truck, and Susan has a 1.4 rating. Lacey almost refuses the ride because of it, but she's desperate enough to accept. During the drive, Susan explains she used to be obsessed with ratings too. Then her husband died because his rating was 0.1 lower than another patient who needed the same cancer treatment. After that, Susan stopped caring what people thought of her. Her rating tanked, but she's genuinely happier now, and I honestly think Lacey should do the same. Susan drops Lacey off, but then Naomi calls. She tells Lacey to not come to the wedding. Lacey's rating is tanked to 2.6, and apparently a 4.2 was charmingly authentic for Naomi's wedding aesthetic. But a 2.6? That's just humiliating.
They are all like 4.5 or above. They are going to freak at a 2.6.
Lacey gets absolutely drunk and crashes the wedding anyway. She stumbles up to deliver her speech, completely wasted, and shits on Naomi for sleeping with her high school boyfriend back in the day.
I always wished I was you. And I guess that's why you kept me around so long?
Every single guest immediately downvotes Lacey, and she plummets to a 0.6. When Naomi's husband Paul tries to restrain her, Lacey grabs a knife and tries to attack him. Well, Lacey eventually gets arrested and ends up in prison. But here's the thing. Her body may be locked up, but for the first time in forever, Lacey's mind is actually free. Moving on to episode 2, where we meet Cooper, a guy who left home to travel the world and has been dodging his mom's calls ever since. His dad developed early onset Alzheimer's and died, and Cooper just can't bring himself to deal with his mother anymore. He's been bouncing around the globe trying to escape all of it. In London, right before he's supposed to head back home, he meets a woman named Sonia. They spend the night together, and the next morning, Cooper goes to withdraw money for his flight, but it turns out that someone stole his banking information. And now he's completely broke. No money for a plane ticket, stuck in London with nowhere to go. He heads back to Sonia's flat and explains the situation. Cooper shows Sonia this app called Odd Jobs that he uses when he runs short on cash. It lists random jobs he can do for quick money.
Interesting ones. Thrill Seekers Wanted.
Ooh.
This looks right up your street.
Sonia scrolls through and finds one for gamer testing at a company called Saito Gemu. Sonia mentions they make horror games, and Cooper recognizes the name immediately. Then she points out something interesting. If Cooper can sneak pictures of whatever they're working on, he could sell that information and make serious money. Cooper shows up at the Saito Gemu building, where an employee named Katie meets him. Katie takes him to this completely white room to test out their new technology, called Mushroom. She makes Cooper leave his backpack in the waiting area and turns his phone off before they enter. Katie hands Cooper an NDA, but for whatever reasons, the signature page is missing, which is weird. Katie then leaves the room to grab it. Cooper immediately jumps up, turns his phone back on, and snaps a picture of the tech. He sends it to Sonia and sits back just before Katie returns. Cooper signs the form, and it's already clear that this isn't just any game test. Katie injects a chip into the back of Cooper's neck and fires it up immediately. But then Cooper's phone suddenly buzzes. It's his mom calling because, surprise, he didn't actually turn it off. Katie swears she turned it off and does it again. Back to the game, and it's like an augmented reality thing. Cooper jumps into a game of whack-a-mole using the chip's 3D graphics, and honestly, the guy's having an absolute blast.
He's right. He's not real. He's a sort of mental projection.
When it's over, Katie asks if Cooper wants to participate in another experiment for even more money. And of course he does. She then introduces him to Sho Saito, the guy who runs the whole company. Sho explains their new tech. It's designed to read Cooper's brain and use his own personal fears against him. You know, totally normal stuff. Cooper agrees since it pays way more. Katie takes him to this mansion from another Saito Gemu game and gives him an earpiece so that they could stay in touch. She tells Cooper that anything he sees is just a harmless hologram, not real. But he's about to find out that's a lie. Katie leaves him there alone. And at first, the scares are pretty tame. A small spider, a bully from Cooper's childhood, nothing he can't handle. But then the earpiece cuts out completely, and that's exactly when things start getting crazy. Sonia suddenly shows up at the house telling Cooper he's in danger. Cooper figures she's just another hologram, but when he reaches out to touch her, she's actually solid. He can feel her.
What are you doing? Hold on.
Cooper, you're in danger.
Quiet. Quiet. I need to think. You're real.
You'd think that Sonia showing up is a good thing, but for some reason she grabs a knife and tries to attack Cooper. Cooper's officially freaking out now, and when he turns to run, he comes face to face with this massive mutant spider. Sonia stabs him in the shoulder, but Cooper eventually impales her on the knife. Her face turns into a skinless skull before both she and the knife just disappear. Katie's voice finally crackles back through the earpiece, and get this, she can't even explain why Cooper could feel things. Anyway, Katie tells Cooper to get to the access point in the house because the test needs to stop. On his way there, Katie starts asking him questions, and that's when Cooper realizes something's very wrong. He's losing his memories. He looks in a mirror and doesn't even recognize his own face. Katie and Sho suddenly burst through the door, full-on panicking. The technology's gone too deep into his brain, and they can't shut it off. That's when Cooper seemingly wakes up back in Sho's office, where the whole experiment started. Sho apologizes for how far the game went, saying it wasn't supposed to do that. We cut to Cooper at home, finally getting back with his mother, but she doesn't even recognize him anymore. She keeps repeating that she needs to call Cooper and starts dialing his number, and that's when things take a dark turn.
I have to call and make sure that he's safe. I have to call him.
Cut back to reality, and Cooper's still in that white room where Katie first took him. His phone rings again, and Cooper suddenly gets hit with some kind of electric shock. Katie gets the tech off of his head, but at this point, it's already too late. The chip has fried Cooper's brain, and he drops down dead. Show enters, and Katie explains the phone must have interfered with the technology. I mean, what? Didn't she switch it off earlier? And it seems like this isn't the first time that a tester is dying, because Show just casually tells Katie to log it in the database. And apparently the entire experiment only lasted 0.04 seconds. And that's why get-quick-rich schemes are a bad idea. Episode 3 opens with Kenny, our teenage protagonist, working his shift at a restaurant. Scraping plates, mopping spills, the glamorous life, you know? But hey, at least he's thoughtful enough to return a little girl's forgotten toy. Gold star for Kenny right there. At home, Kenny's sister steals his laptop to watch free movies, but Kenny takes it back only to discover she's infected it with malware. Fantastic.
Don't be a bellend!
Use your own.
Mine's bust. Yours has gone all frozen anyway.
What did you do?
Just trying to put on this film thing.
He downloads a program to fix it, completely unaware that his webcam is now recording him. You can probably see where this is going. Later that night, Kenny locks himself in his room and proceeds to, rub one out. Yeah, it's really bad, and the camera captures everything. The next day, Kenny gets an email with a video of his private moment, and the hacker's message is simple. Give us your number, or everyone you know gets to see this. Kenny complies immediately, and the instructions start rolling in. They tell Kenny to keep his phone charged, turn on his location, and tell no one about this, because they're watching him. The following morning, Kenny's at work when the hacker sends him GPS coordinates and gives him 45 minutes to get there, except it's a 57-minute bike ride. Kenny tells his boss that he's sick and starts pedaling like his life depends on it because, well, it kinda does. Kenny makes it in time to meet this man with a moped, another victim who hands him a mysterious box, and inside the box is a cake that says I love you. You probably think this is a prank, but trust me, it's not. Kenny has to deliver it to a hotel room with a guy named Hector. Turns out Hector's also being blackmailed. He was supposed to meet an escort named Mindy, which is a problem since he's got a wife and kids at home. He sent her some pictures and yep, the hacker grabbed everything. If his wife finds out, she's going to leave him and take the kids with her, so they're both cooked. The hacker sends him directions to a car and they hit the road. They finally arrive at their destination and the hacker sends new instructions again. They open the cake and find a hat, sunglasses, and a gun. This determined hacker tells them they've got to rob the bank across the street. Anyway, the clock's ticking. Hector decides he'll be the getaway driver, leaving Kenny to handle the robbery. Yeah, it's counterintuitive, but Kenny's having the worst day of his life right about now, so he really can't drive. Yeesh.
Give me money.
Dude literally pisses himself during the robbery, but since the cashier didn't argue, Kenny was able to pull it off. Back in the car, Hector and Kenny follow the hacker's instructions and drive to a field. Hector's told to destroy the car while Kenny takes the money to meet someone else. In the field, Kenny finds a man asking about the prize money. Apparently, Kenny has to fight this man, and the winner walks away with the cash. But then the guy asks Kenny how young they were in his videos. And just like that, we realize Kenny wasn't watching regular... He was viewing child abuse material. Ugh. Yeah, I stopped feeling bad for him after that. At this point, Kenny tries to shoot himself with a gun, but it's empty. There was never a bullet in it. Anyway, the two dudes fight brutally. Kenny stumbles out of the woods with the money, bloody and broken. But here's the twist. The crazy hacker just leaks everything anyway. Hector's wife gets the evidence, and Kenny's mom sees her son's video too. The police arrive, and Kenny doesn't run, he just stands there as they arrest him, because what's the point? Damn, what an episode. Episode 4 opens with Yorkie stepping into San Junipero for the first time in 1987. She's this shy, awkward woman wandering through a massive party town, completely out of her element. The neon lights, the music, it's all a bit much for her. One of the first people she spots is Kelly, This confident party girl who's currently dealing with an unwanted admirer named Wes. Kelly's clearly trying to shake him off, so she does what any clever person would do. She pretends to know Yorkie. She walks right up to her and acts like they're old friends catching up. Wes gets the hint and leaves. But Kelly doesn't just ditch Yorkie after all that. She actually stays and talks to her. She invites her to dance and things start getting a little flirty. Yorkie, who's clearly not used to this kind of attention, especially from a woman, panics and runs away. Kelly follows her outside, and when she straight up propositions Yorkie for Yorkie's so overwhelmed that she blurts out she's engaged and leaves. The following week, Yorkie finds Kelly again. Yorkie follows Kelly into the bathroom, and this time she doesn't run. They kiss. They head back to Kelly's bungalow and sleep together. Afterward, Yorkie reveals that this was her first time with anyone. Kelly opens up too, sharing that she's and was once married to a man. They're having this intimate, vulnerable moment together, and then the clock strikes midnight, and the scene just ends. The next week, Yorkie comes back to San Junipero, searching for Kelly everywhere. She checks all the usual spots, but Kelly's nowhere to be found. Eventually, she runs into Wes at this place called Quagmire. She asks Wes if he knows where Kelly is, hoping he might have some info. His answer is quite bizarre.
Try a different time. Seen her in the 80s, mid-90s.
So Yorkie keeps searching, and suddenly she's not just in 1987 anymore. She's time-hopping through different decades of San Junipero. The 90s, the 2000s, she's literally traveling through time trying to find Kelly. She finally tracks her down in 2002. Yorkie approaches her, probably relieved to finally see her again. They talk, and Kelly finally opens up about what's going on. In real life, she's dying. Kelly came to San Junipero just to have some fun and to feel young again, to forget about everything waiting for her in the real world. She never meant to make a real connection with anyone, and especially not to hurt anyone. They slept together again, but this time Kelly says she wants to meet Yorkie in real life. She wants to know who she really is, outside of San Junipero. Yorkie begs her not to, and she really doesn't want Kelly to see her in the real world. But Kelly keeps pushing, and eventually Yorkie gives in and tells her where she is in California. Now, here's where the show pulls back the curtain and reveals what actually is happening. In the real world, there's this technology that allows dead people's consciousnesses to be uploaded to a virtual reality system. They can live in San Junipero as their younger selves, forever. Elderly people who are still alive can visit San Junipero for a trial period, 5 hours a week, ending at midnight. That's why everything kept cutting off at midnight. That's why Wes told Yorkie to look in different decades. They're all just visiting. Kelly goes to visit Yorkie in the real world, and what she finds breaks your heart. Yorkie isn't this young, vibrant woman. She's an elderly woman completely paralyzed in an assisted living facility.
Hello, stupid.
The nurse tells Kelly that Yorkie's been in this condition for over 40 years, after a car accident. Yorkie's nurse, Greg, explains that Yorkie's been using her 5-hour weekly trial to visit San Junipero, but now she's ready to make it permanent. She wants to be euthanized so her consciousness can be uploaded to San Junipero forever, where she can finally be free. But there's a problem. Yorkie's family is deeply religious, and they have moral objections to all of this, and they refuse to sign the papers allowing her to die. So Yorkie comes up with a plan. She got engaged to her nurse, the fiancé Yorkie mentioned way back at the beginning. If they get married, he can legally override her family's authority and authorize her euthanasia. Kelly hears all this and realizes that Yorkie's about to marry someone she doesn't love just so she can finally be free. And she can't let that happen, so Kelly enters San Junipero with Yorkie one more time, just for 5 minutes, and proposes to her. Yorkie says yes enthusiastically, and they get married in the real world. And Kelly signs the authorization for Yorkie's euthanasia. Yorkie passes over to San Junipero permanently. She's finally free. Yorkie's living full-time in San Junipero now, and she's happy, but she's also frustrated because Kelly's still only able to visit her for 5 hours a week. One day, caught up in the moment, Yorkie impulsively asks Kelly to join her permanently, to upload herself to San Junipero so they can be together forever. But Kelly's torn. She was married before, to a man she loved deeply for 49 years, and he chose not to upload to San Junipero. Kelly reveals that she had a daughter, and her name was Allison, and she died when she was 39 years old. She died before San Junipero technology even existed, which means she's not there. Kelly's husband couldn't bring himself to spend eternity in a place that didn't have their daughter, so he chose not to upload, and Kelly promised him she wouldn't either. Frustrated by Yorkie pushing her to stay, Kelly gets in her car and drives, and then she intentionally crashes it. Yorkie appears and tries to help her, but right at that moment, Kelly's time in San Junipero expires. She just disappears. In the real world, Kelly's condition gets worse. She's reaching the end, and she has to make a choice about what happens next. Eventually, Kelly makes her decision. She chooses to be euthanized and have her body buried with her husband and her daughter. But she also decides to upload her consciousness to San Junipero. She's going to join Yorkie after all.
For the rest of it.
The episode ends with Kelly and Yorkie back in San Junipero, dancing together, finally able to be happy without a time limit hanging over them. Meanwhile, in the real world, we see robots maintaining row after row of servers in this massive facility. These servers are storing the consciousnesses of everyone who now lives permanently in San Junipero. That counts as a happy ending, right? Episode 5 opens with a military squad hunting down threats called roaches, mutated leftovers from some biological weapon used in a war. The squad includes Stripe, a new recruit on his first mission, and Rayman, an experienced soldier who's maybe a little too eager to pull the trigger, all led by their commanding officer, Medina. They all have this implant called Mass that helps them with tactical operations, giving them enhanced vision and strategic information overlaid on their field of view. They get called into a village where roaches have ransacked and contaminated the food supply. Following a lead, they head to this old decrepit manor house and interrogate the owner. Medina suspects he's hiding roaches somewhere on the property, so the squad splits up to search the place. They are these pale humanoid creatures with sharp teeth who can't speak. A fight breaks out, and the roaches attack. During the chaos, one of the roaches flashes Stripe with some kind of device that has a green light at the tip. It's obvious something's changed, we just don't know yet. They kill all the roaches except one, who manages to escape into the woods. They then capture the manor owner and torch the whole place. On the way back to headquarters, Stripe starts daydreaming about a woman, but the image of her glitches out like a corrupted video file. That night, he has the same dream, but this time it's interrupted by flashes of blood. A conversation with Rayman reveals something interesting. Apparently, these soldiers get these fantasies fed to them as rewards every time they kill roaches. Over the next few days, Stripe's interface keeps glitching during training exercises. He reports it to a doctor and a psychologist named Arquette. Arquette types some commands into a computer and tells Stripe he'll get a good night as a thank you for reporting the technical issues. When Stripe sleeps that night, his fantasy intensifies. Now, there are multiple copies of the same woman. The next day, the squad heads over to another compound on a new hunt. Stripe's interface glitches again, but this time it does something different. It gives him his sense of smell back, which he apparently hasn't had this whole time.
Smell the grass. We can't usually smell nothing.
They then get ambushed by a roach sniper who kills Medina. The squad storms the building looking for the sniper, and Stripe encounters what he sees as a normal human woman. She tries to flee, and Rayman shoots her without hesitation. A firefight breaks out, and it becomes very clear that something is wrong. Stripe is seeing normal humans, while Rayman is still seeing roaches. Stripe watches in horror as Rayman guns down what Stripe now perceives as terrified civilians. He knocks Rayman out to stop her, but he gets shot in the chaos. He manages to escape with two of the roaches, a woman and a child. From here on out, we see that they're not monsters. They're just human. Now Stripe can understand what they're saying. Stripe passes out while driving, and the woman and the child lead him to their makeshift hiding place. The woman introduces herself as Katrina and explains what actually is happening. The mass implant has been altering Stripe's vision the entire time. The roaches aren't mutants or monsters. They're just people. Human beings. The villagers aren't under the influence of mass, so they see the roaches as human too. But they've been fed propaganda and hatred that makes them complicit in what's essentially a genocide. Katrina explains that after a war 10 years ago, the government started a campaign to eliminate people they deemed genetically inferior. The mass implant makes soldiers see the victims as inhuman monsters, so they'll kill without hesitation. Stripe has been participating in an extermination program without even knowing it.
Roaches don't speak.
Meanwhile, Rayman tracks Stripe down. She storms the hideout and kills Katrina and the child. We see them as humans, but Rayman still sees roaches. She knocks Stripe unconscious and drags him back to headquarters where he's thrown into confinement. Arquette visits Stripe in his cell and explains what happened. The green light device was an optical transmitter that infected his mass implant with a virus, breaking down the visual alterations. Arquette confirms everything Katrina told him. Stripe has been working for a global eugenics program designed to purify the bloodline of humanity. Stripe agreed to have his memory and perception altered. He volunteered for this. Stripe loses it and tries to attack Arquette, but Arquette uses the implant to blind Stripe, completely shutting down his vision. Then he plays the actual footage from Stripe's first mission. We see what really happened. Stripe brutally murdered people who were begging for their lives, pleading in words he couldn't understand because the implant wouldn't let him. Arquette gives Stripe a choice. He can keep his memories and be locked up permanently, forced to watch his footage on a loop for the rest of his life, or he can agree to have his recent memories erased and go back to being a soldier. And Stripe agrees to the memory wipe. He's discharged and sent home. The final scene shows Stripe returning to his beautiful, immaculate house where his dream girl is waiting for him. Everything seems perfect. But then the camera pulls back and we see the truth. He's actually standing alone in front of an old, empty house. It's all the mass implant, feeding him a fantasy to reward his service. Stripe chose to forget everything and keep the implant running rather than live with the guilt. The final episode of Season 3 opens with DCI Karen Park sitting in a court hearing, about to explain her involvement in what is clearly a massive disaster. We flash back to May 15th of the previous year when controversial journalist Joe Powers was found dead at home with her throat cut. Powers had recently written a column criticizing a disability activist's suicide, which naturally made her the internet's main character for all the wrong reasons. Park gets assigned to investigate Powers' death and meets her new partner, Blue. Powers' husband is in the hospital with knife wounds, and his story is absolutely wild. He claims his wife suddenly went berserk and started stabbing herself in the head.
You smashed her head onto the desk. Hard. Then she pushed me over.
He got injured trying to stop her. He's the obvious suspect. But Park has this gut feeling he's telling the truth. Her logic? If he's going to lie, he'd have come up with something way more believable than, my wife suddenly attacked herself. Meanwhile, this rapper known as Tusk turns into the internet's punching bag after he insults a young fan on a live chat. One night when he's leaving a concert, he's suddenly hit with this excruciating head pain. He gets rushed to the hospital for an MRI scan, but during the procedure, the magnets in the scanner pull something small through his brain and out through his eyeball, killing Tusk instantly. Something similar was found in Powers' brain during her autopsy, and Park notices the pattern. Both victims had been targeted with the Twitter hashtag #Death2, used to vote on which public hate figure should die. The device turns out to be an autonomous drone insect, or ADI for short. These were created to replace the extinct bee population in this crazy dystopia. Now someone's hacked the system and is using them to kill people. The ADIs are made by a company named Granular, and one of their employees, Rasmus, discovers the devices were hacked by an employee in the same company. Rasmus teams up with the NCA agent Sean Lee to investigate. Meanwhile, Park and Blue find a website running a game where Twitter users vote to kill hated public figures using the hashtag #Death2 hashtag. Whoever gets the most votes dies. And the next target is Clara Meads, who posted a disrespectful selfie at a military war memorial. Because the internet is full of reasonable people, she's now marked for death. Park and the team move her to a secluded safe house, but one ADI that initially targeted Clara follows them there. They seal every opening they can think of, but you can't seal everything. One ADI goes straight into Clara's head, and all Park and Blue can do is watch her die. Blue figures out that the ADIs are using facial recognition to find their targets, which should be impossible unless Granular has access to government records. So she confronts Sean, and he's forced to admit the truth. The government has been secretly using ADIs for mass public surveillance. That was the only way to get the funding needed to make the whole bee replacement project work. That's so messed up. Park then interviews a former Granular employee who attempted suicide after being targeted by online hate. The woman reveals that her flatmate, Garrett, also a former Granular employee, saved her life. Park's suspicions immediately light up, especially since Garrett worked on the ADI system itself. When they examine the ADI pulled from Joe Powers' brain, they find a manifesto written by Garrett. He wanted to force people to face the consequences of their actions and not hide behind online anonymity. Garrett left the country 6 months ago, but also the manifesto includes a selfie he took which allows Blue to trace his location. They raid Garrett's hideout, and while they don't find him, they find his disk drive, containing the system that controls the ADIs. When they connect it to Granular's network, it downloads a list of everyone who's ever used the hashtag #Death2 hashtag. 387,036 people. Their names, their faces, everything. Park realizes immediately what Garrett's plan was. He wanted people to participate in his sick game so he could compile a list of everyone willing to casually vote for someone's death. Now he's going to kill all of them. Blue and Rasmus frantically try to shut down the system, but Park warns them that it's a trap.
Why has he collected everyone who took part? I mean...
Okay, I'm ready.
She thinks the deactivate function is actually going to command the execute everyone on the list. Against Park's explicit orders, Sean triggers the system anyway. For a brief moment, it looks like Granular has regained control, but Park was right. The ADIs are all sent out to kill all 387,036 people who used the hashtag. Back in the present, Park finishes her testimony. She explains that Blue went missing after the massacre and is presumed to have committed suicide. The hearing thanks her and dismisses her. Sean nervously takes her place, and he's about to get absolutely destroyed for ignoring Park's warning and triggering a mass casualty event. Anyway, the episode ends with Park walking out on the street, and she's now a public hate figure herself because of the case. Then she receives an anonymous text from Blue, who's alive and secretly working to track down Garrett. And apparently Blue has found Garrett abroad. Moving on to Season 4, the first episode in this season opens with Captain Robert Daly commanding his crew aboard the USS Callister, a spaceship engaged in an epic battle against their arch-nemesis, Valdak. They destroy Valdak's ship in a spectacular fashion, but Valdak manages to escape at the last second. It doesn't really matter though, because the crew celebrate their victory anyway. Then we cut to the real world and things get significantly less glamorous. Robert Daly is actually a chief technical officer at Callister Incorporated, a company he co-founded with James Walton, who's now the CEO. They've created this massive multiplayer game called Infinity, where users control starships in simulated reality. But despite being the technical genius behind the whole thing, Daly's treated like absolute garbage by his co-workers who, interestingly enough, look exactly like his crew from the opening scene.
Oh, are you okay, man? I guess you didn't see my gym bag.
Enter Nanette Cole, a new programmer who's just showing up for her first day at work. Nanette is really impressed with Infinity, and she genuinely praises Daly's work on the game. She seems impressed, maybe even a little starstruck. But before Daly can even respond, Walton swoops in and whisks her away for a tour, completely cutting Daly out of the conversation. When Daly gets home that night, he boots up a private development build of Infinity that he's modded to look like his favorite old TV show, Space Fleet. He enters the game using the small device he attaches to his head. In the game, he's Captain Daly and immediately starts berating his crew. He strangles a completely submissive version of Walton, who eventually takes what appears to be his regular position as Daly's footstool. Back in reality, Daly steals a coffee cup Nanette threw away and uses her DNA to create a digital clone of her consciousness inside his private game. Nanette wakes up aboard the USS Callister, completely confused and terrified. The crew tries to be kind, and Lowry explains what's happened. They're all digital clones of the Callister staff members trapped in Daly's game. Nanette tries to escape the ship, but gets teleported right back. When she refuses to follow Daly's commands during a mission, he casually removes her facial features. No eyes, no nose, no mouth. Daly explains that Nanette won't die, but she will continuously suffocate forever unless she cooperates.
Were you gonna throw a fireball?
So yeah, Daly's got some issues. Nanette immediately relents and takes her position at a console. They go on a mission where they capture Valdak, but spare his life again because Captain Daly is magnanimous, or whatever. After Daly logs out, Nanette gets an idea. She manages to send a game invite containing a message for help to her real-world self. The real Nanette asks the real Daly about the weird message the next day, and he just brushes it off as spam. That night, Daly enters the game to interrogate his crew about who sent it. When Lowry defends Nanette, Daly transforms her into a grotesque monster as punishment. Anyway, once Daly leaves the game, Nanette spots something in the distance, a wormhole that serves as an uplink to Infinity's next update. She realizes that if they fly the ship into that wormhole, the game's firewall will detect them as unauthorized code and delete them. They'll die, but at least they'll escape. Walton is extremely hesitant to help with this plan and explains why. Daly once created a digital clone of Walton's young son Tommy and threw the boy out of an airlock into space just to punish Walton. And Daly promised he'd do it again and again, as many times as necessary to keep Walton obedient. Walton finally agrees to help when Nanette promises they'll destroy the DNA sample Daly used to create Tommy. It's stored in the freaking lollipop in Daly's apartment. When Daly next enters the game, Nanette has completely shifted her approach. Nanette approaches Daly to take her on a solo mission to a planet called Skill Lane 4. Once they're there, Nanette strips down to her underwear and runs into the water. Daly, clearly conflicted, but unable to resist, follows her in, leaving behind his omnicorder, the device that gives him godlike control over the game. The moment he's in the water, the crew executes Nanette's plan. They teleport the omnicorder to the ship and use it to access Nanette's real-world photo cloud account, specifically her private photos. They use those images to blackmail the real-world Nanette into ordering a pizza to Daly's apartment. When he goes to answer the door, real-world Nanette breaks in through the back door and steals the DNA samples Daly's been collecting. Back in the game, they teleport digital Nanette back to the ship using the omnicorder. As Daly returns to his body in Skill Lane 4, he sees the ship making a run for the wormhole. He commandeers a nearby crashed spaceship and chases them through an asteroid belt. Unfortunately, the Callister collides with an asteroid, disabling the engines, and Daly starts closing the distance. Walton makes a choice. He goes out to manually repair the engine, knowing full well that when it fires up, it'll incinerate him. He won't die, he'll just burn continuously. But he does it anyway because it's the only way to get the ship moving fast enough. The ship accelerates into the wormhole, which closes just before Daly can follow them through. The crew wakes up in a new version of Infinity, the actual updated multiplayer game. Lowry's back to normal, and even Valdak is there. Meanwhile, the firewall has detected Daly's modded build as unauthorized software and has locked all his controls. He's physically trapped in the game, unable to exit, as his private world is deleted around him. And in real time, Daly just dies, since he's stuck inside of the deleted game. Eesh. Episode 2 opens with a proactive single mother, Marie Sambrel, giving birth to her daughter Sarah. 3 years later, Sarah goes missing at a playground while chasing a cat. Marie completely loses it, screaming for her daughter, but she finds Sarah shortly after completely unharmed. The whole incident was nothing, but it's enough to send Marie into panic mode. Desperate to prevent future scares, Marie signs up for a limited release trial of Arkangel, a revolutionary child monitoring system that's basically helicopter parenting, but worse. An Arkangel representative gives Sarah a neural implant that lets Marie track her location, monitor her vitals, and even view everything Sarah sees in real time through a tablet. Oh, and there's also a feature that censors obscene content by blurring Sarah's sights and distorting the audio. Sounds great. What could possibly go wrong? Initially, the system works great, and it censors an aggressive neighborhood dog that would have scared Sarah, but the flaws start showing up pretty quickly when Sarah's grandfather has a stroke. The obscenity filter kicks in and censors him completely. Sarah can't see or hear him telling her to get help, so she just stands there while the old man lays there in pain. Yeah, that feature's working out great.
Huh? Sarah.
Years after her grandfather's death, Sarah has become socially isolated and emotionally stunted. She can't handle normal stressful situations because she's never been exposed to them. And the constant knowledge that everything she sees can be monitored has turned her into an outcast. She gets frustrated when she can't view any graphic content, can't have its contents explained to her, and can't even draw blood on paper without it getting censored. That evening, Sarah picks her fingers with a pencil trying to see her own blood, when it gets blurred out. She starts stabbing her hand repeatedly, trying to understand what blood even looks like. Marie gets a high stress alert on the tablet and sees what Sarah's doing and runs upstairs to stop her daughter. Marie takes Sarah to a child psychologist who tells her exactly what she needs to hear. Arkangel is the problem. The system never got a full release because of ethical concerns, and it's about to be banned completely. The implant itself can't be removed, but the psychologist advises Marie to deactivate the filter and throw away the tablet. Marie deactivates the filter, and Sarah goes to school unsupervised for the first time. But Marie can't bring herself to throw the tablet away, so she hides it instead. At school, Sarah's classmate Trick immediately exposes her to obscene stuff.
It's just like people doing it. They can't make babies that way, they have to do it different for that.
Fast forward to Sarah at 15. She's well-adjusted now, popular, and secretly dating Trick. Sarah tells Marie she's going to a friend's house, but actually she goes to a party at a lake. When Sarah doesn't answer calls, Marie panics and reactivates the tablet. Man, I knew she couldn't hold it anymore. Anyway, Marie watches in horror as Sarah and Trick are having...
Be harder.
Oh, God. Oh.
But that's not all. Marie later sees the two of them doing drugs. Marie identifies Trick with a reverse image search and blackmails him into breaking up with Sarah, threatening to report him for having... just report him. Anyway, Trick ghosts Sarah completely, leaving her heartbroken and confused. Later, the tablet pings with some not-so-wonderful news. Sarah is pregnant. Marie slips contraceptives into her daughter's juice without any second thoughts. Sarah throws up at school, and the nurse confirms that the pill worked. Sarah immediately knows her mom's responsible for it. She finds the empty packaging in the trash, then discovers the tablet hidden in the attic, watching every invasive recording her mother's been making. When Marie gets home, Sarah's already waiting to move out. Marie plays the "I'm just trying to protect you" card, but it's absolutely futile. Sarah yanks the tablet away, accidentally turning the obscenity filter back on, and starts hitting on her mother's face with it. Here's the horrifying part. Because the filter's active, Sarah can't actually see her bleeding mom. That's one f***ed up kid. When the tablet finally shatters, the filter cuts out, Sarah finally sees what she's done, so she just grabs her stuff and runs out. Thankfully, Marie isn't dead. She stumbles outside and starts screaming Sarah's name down the street. Meanwhile, Sarah's already flagging down a semi-truck, getting the hell out of town. Good God, that was depressing. Episode 2 kicks off with Rob behind the wheel with Mia riding shotgun. Just two drunk friends driving home from a party. Everything's going well, that's until they accidentally hit a cyclist, killing him instantly. Here's where things go from bad to catastrophic. Rob's been drinking, so calling the police means going to jail. Rob thinks fast and decides it's a better idea to dump the man and his bike into the water. Jeez, the episode just started. Anyway, things die there, and 15 years later, Mia's now an architect living her best life with her husband Simon and their son Finn. Later, Mia's at some event giving a speech when Rob shows up at her hotel room. And unlike Mia, who's moved on, Rob's suddenly having a conscience about the hit and run 15 years earlier. Rob shows Mia an article about the cyclist's wife still waiting for her husband after all these years. Rob decides he wants to fix his mistakes and announces his brilliant plan to write the cyclist's wife an anonymous letter. Mia knows this means trouble, so she begs Rob to think about her son, her life, everything she's built. But Rob's already made up his mind. Mia makes up her own and does exactly what's on your mind. She takes matters into her own hands and kills Rob right on the spot. Right across the street, Mia looks out her window and sees a self-driving pizza truck nail a pedestrian. This is all kind of weird, but stay with me. Cut to Shazia, an insurance investigator. Right now she's at home and she's not thrilled when her husband Anand brings home a guinea pig for their son Ali. Weird choice for a pet, but 3 stars for effort. Anyway, work calls for Shazia as she's investigating that pizza truck incident. The pizza truck hits someone and there's money on the line. Back at the hotel, Mia orders room service and uses the food cart to wheel Rob's body to her car, dumping his body at a construction site. Meanwhile, Shazia is already at work investigating the pizza truck incident. In a normal world, investigators use video evidence, right? Except the street's camera was covered in paint and the pizza van's camera was conveniently broken.
So if we can prove full liability, you could also consider filing a substantial civil case under our litigation wing. Could be a lot of money.
But Shazia's got a trick up her sleeve. This device is called a recaller, and it pulls memories from people's heads and displays it on a screen. It absolutely amazes me how the show spawns devices that can do unreal things every single episode. Anyway, Shazia looks up Gordy, the guy who got hit, to trigger his memory. The recaller shows Gordy's perspective right up until impact, including a glimpse of a woman who might have seen everything. This woman is Noni Harper Brown, a factory worker. Shazia tracks her down, does the whole routine again, and pulls Noni's memory. Noni doesn't remember much, but the recaller reveals a flash of light from a dentist's office across the street. Shazia visits the dentist, who admits he was trying to take a photo of some guy in a hotel window when his camera flash went off by mistake. Instead of getting a shot, he somehow got Mia in the frame. Being the absolute genius that she is, Shazia uses facial recognition to match the face in the blurry photo. That person is Mia, and she's living way out of town. But that's not a problem for Shazia as she drives down there and shows up at Mia's doorstep. At first, Mia tries to play dumb, but Shazia explains it's legally required for Mia to disclose what she saw during the incident. So Mia lets her in, and Shazia sets up the recaller. Mia's memory recalls the pizza truck incident, with flashes of killing Rob, as well as the cyclist from 15 years ago. Shazia says she's got what she needed on the van and packs up. Naturally, Mia's panicking about what Shazia saw, even though Shazia says it's none of her business. But in the absolute worst timing, Shazia's car flat out refuses to start, giving Mia the opportunity to drag Shazia out of the car. Now Shazia's tied up in Mia's house. Mia's spiraling, apologizing, explaining she can't let her go because the recollections are recorded. Shazia swears she'll delete everything and never tell anyone, but Mia doesn't buy it. Mia also hooks Shazia up to the recaller and discovers Shazia told her husband, Anand, where she went. So Mia grabs a log, asks Shazia to close her eyes, and yeah, she kills Shazia. To keep loose ends clean, Mia gets Shazia's home address from her GPS, grabs her keys, and she sneaks into Shazia's house with a hammer. She finds Anand in the bathtub and kills him too. Then she hears the baby Ali standing in his crib. The scene cuts right there, but we later find out that Mia killed the innocent baby. I swear, Mia has to be the craziest character in the show so far. The police arrive at Shazia's house to find the bodies, and here's the crazy twist. Mia killed Ali to prevent his memories from being recalled, except Ali was born blind. So much for cleaning up loose ends. Oh, and remember the guinea pig Anand bought earlier, though? Well, the recall team's already working on using the pet guinea pig's memory. And for Mia, the cops show up right on time to grab her at her son's school event. Episode 4 opens with Frank, an awkward guy new to this whole dating scene. Frank gets directions from a coach, his AI assistant in this weird world that runs on a dating system. Frank weaves through packed corridors until he arrives at a table where Amy's waiting for him. Frank sits down and immediately announces it's his first time using the system. Amy says the same, and honestly, the awkwardness is palpable. A server drops off their pre-selected meals, and then Amy suggests checking their expiration date, which is exactly as dystopian as it sounds. When their time runs out, they just have to go to their separate ways. It's how the system finds the perfect match for a person. Frank and Amy pull out their devices and discover they've got exactly 12 hours together. The countdown starts immediately, so they decide to make the most of their extremely limited time. A cab whisks them to this numbered house. Things start off awkward between Frank and Amy, but they eventually get comfortable around each other. They end up having this surprisingly sweet conversation about how dating must have worked before the system. Actually having to find someone and figure out compatibility yourself, which is apparently not a thing in this world they live in. They eventually fall asleep, and in the next morning, they're both kind of bummed they didn't sleep together. They both agree they had a good time before they enter their separate vehicles and leave. Frank asks how the system knows Amy wasn't his perfect match. Then the coach reveals that the system hasn't selected his match yet. Frank's got to cycle through lots of relationships first. But don't worry, the system has a 99.8 success rate. Speaking of which, both Amy and Frank get new matches almost immediately. Amy meets Lenny while Frank meets Nicola. Frank meets Nicola at a restaurant, and Nicola immediately wants to check their expiration date, and it turns out they've got a full year together. Oof. Frank tries to lighten the mood with a joke, but no, Nicola's not having it. On the other hand, Amy and Lenny get 9 months. Lenny's already a veteran. This is his 6th relationship. He tells Amy it's best just to bone right away to break the ice. And for Amy and Lenny, it's actually an enjoyable experience. For Frank and Nicola, not so much. Nicola's treating it like a technical demonstration, constantly giving Frank feedback and making him switch positions. Oof, that'll kill anybody's mood.
More motion. Not like that, more motion. You're all in, out, like you're trying to shut a drawer back into a filing cabinet.
That night, Frank checks his device while Nicola sleeps. Still 365 days to go. It's going to be a very long year for the both of them. And no, Frank cannot leave early. At a pairing day celebration, Frank spots Amy across the room with Lenny. Amy comes over to say hi, and they're catching up when Lenny appears. Amy introduces them, and even though Frank says they look like a great team, honestly, he sounds heartbroken. After the event, the montage of misery begins. For Amy and Lenny, all they do is bone. There's not much connection outside of that. But Frank has it a bit worse. He's just counting down the days till the relationship expires. They all can't wait to get out of it. When their time finally expires, Amy and Lenny leave the house and go their separate ways, and Amy almost immediately gets matched with Norman, this time just for 36 hours. They have relations, shake hands, and part ways like they just closed a business deal. Same thing happens for 2 more guys, and when Amy gets another match notification, she looks absolutely miserable. Meanwhile, Frank and Nicola's year finally ends, and they both leave without any goodbyes, which is not surprising at all. Anyway, Frank gets a new match immediately, and surprise, surprise, it's Amy again. They're at a restaurant, and they're both genuinely excited to see each other.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Is this right?
Amy suggests they don't check their expiration date this time, which is a good idea in my opinion. She's had 3 short flings in a row, and just checking the timer made her feel disconnected. They decide to not look at the timer and just be together. When they get home, the two decide that it's time to get jiggy with it. After some playful back and forth, they undress each other and fall into bed, and for once it actually feels real. Later, Frank watches Amy sleep, and he can't help but glance at his device. A few days later, Frank cracks. He pulls out the device and asks Coach for the expiration date. Frank struggles with himself internally, but then he still checks it anyway. 5 years. Not bad. But then it starts recalibrating because only Frank looked and not Amy. And once it starts recalculated, it just keeps going down. 3 years, 18 months, 2 months, 3 weeks, 5 days, 24 hours, and then there's literally no way to undo this. Even if Amy looks now.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
As time continues to run, Frank is obviously broken. Amy asks what's bothering him, and Frank confesses he looked at their expiration date. Amy's furious because they had a promise. She's even more upset that he broke their agreement than she is about the time running out. Frank suggests they rebel, scale the wall, jump into the wilderness, ignore the system entirely. But Amy thinks there's nothing out there as she walks away. Amy then gets matched with someone else, but it feels soulless. Amy goes through several more matches, and Frank's going through his own too, till the coach finally announces they've found their ultimate match. For Amy, tomorrow's her pairing day. She'll be coupled forever with someone she's never met. But first, she gets a farewell period to say goodbye to one person, which is Frank, obviously. Amy meets Frank at a restaurant, and he checks his device, and they've got 90 seconds. Frank tells Amy that the system set his pairing day for tomorrow too, but he doesn't want whoever he's paired with. Frank wants Amy, and she wants him too. The coach reminds them that failure to comply means banishment. For some reason, the lovebirds are convinced that this whole system thing is a test, and Amy thinks if they rebel together, that's how they'll pass. So when their time expires, they just ignore it. Amy takes Frank's hand as they leave the restaurant. A security guard tries to stop them with a taser, but Amy just touches it and everything freezes. Everyone, everything, completely frozen. She takes Frank's hand and they walk out together. They then climb the wall, and as they do, the world starts to pixelate and glitch. Suddenly they're in a big dark room that looks like something from the Matrix. The number 998 floats above them. All around there are other versions of themselves, each with numbers overhead. They watch as their duplicates float upward. Above, a counter ticks up. Turns out, the entire relationship we just watched was a simulation. 1 of 1,000 copies testing Frank and Amy's compatibility. And out of those 1,000 simulations, they choose to rebel and escape together 998 times. That's a 99.8% match. The episode wraps up with Amy back at the club, desperately searching for her perfect match. She then glances down at her phone, and there it is. Frank's face staring back at her. 99.8%. And across the room, Frank's looking down at his own screen, seeing the exact same thing. Episode 5 is about scavengers finding supplies in a wasteland, and this episode was filmed entirely in black and white. You know, just in case things weren't bleak enough. We meet Bella, a determined survivor in a post-apocalyptic wasteland, along with other survivors, Anthony and Clark. A couple of guys who volunteered to help Bella retrieve a package from an abandoned warehouse. They're driving to the warehouse to find pain meds for their dying friend Jack. Bella and Anthony break in while Clark stays behind a hot wire van. Inside the warehouse, they use an ID code scribbled on their hands to locate a box on a high shelf. Anthony reaches for it, but he immediately regrets his decision. There's a robotic guard dog hiding behind it. And when I say dog, I mean a 4-legged mechanical nightmare that immediately fires an exploding shell at him. Yikes. Anthony drops the box and hits the floor immediately, but the dog's not done just yet. One shotgun blast to the body and another to the head, and Anthony's done. Bella takes off with the box, screaming at Clark to get in the van. Unfortunately for Clark, the dog is faster. It jumps through the van's rear window and kills Clark instantly. As if that's not enough, the dog hijacks the van through an electronic port and starts chasing Bella in it. Bella gets forced off the road, crashes through the forest, and her car ends up teetering off the edge of a cliff. The dog climbs in for the kill, but Bella escapes just in time for the car to plummet off the edge with the dog still inside. Bella sits by a creek digging shrapnel out of her leg with a knife and pliers, except the shrapnel's a tiny electronic tracker. She tosses it in a plastic bottle and sends it floating downstream. Bella tries radioing for help, but she only hears static. Meanwhile, you might think that crash should have been the end of that dog, right? Well, no. Hell no. The dog gets itself out of the wreckage by literally amputating its own leg. It follows the tracker to the bottle, then picks up Bella's radio signal. Bella climbs a tree immediately and she spots the dog. And then she realizes its damaged leg means it can't climb. So she waits it out, repeatedly waking it up by throwing stuff at it to drain its battery. Eventually, the menace powers down and she escapes. Bella finds a fortified house, breaks in, and discovers 2 corpses upstairs, who apparently chose the easy way out. She grabs car keys and a shotgun, but sunrise means the dog's solar-powered battery is back up at full charge. It tracks her into the house, and I kid you not, picks up a kitchen knife with its partially amputated leg and starts spinning it like some kind of robotic ninja. Bella already hears the dog coming, and when it arrives, Bella dumps paint over the dog's visual sensor, which blinds it. She runs to the car, but the engine won't start. I swear, the cars in this show are the worst. The music playing through the car speakers distracts the dog, so it follows the sound and climbs inside to attack, but Bella's already behind it with a shotgun. She blasts it, but not before the dog launches the tracker shell that explodes in her face. In the bathroom mirror later, Bella sees a tracker shrapnel embedded all over her skin, and at this point she realizes there's no escaping. It'll always know where she is. So Bella prepares to slit her own throat, which honestly isn't the worst call considering the scene outside reveals dozens more killer dogs already closing in. Moving on to episode 6, which is the last one in season 4. It's a little bit different. We open with the Black Museum, a roadside attraction in the middle of nowhere. A little fun fact is that the museum contains artifacts from some previous episodes. Anyway, we meet Nish, an apparent tourist on a road trip, whose car just died on the road with the museum right in the distance. Nish casually pulls out a solar panel to charge his car that looks like it belongs in the year 1960. The solar panel shows Nish gotta wait 3 hours for a full charge. Perfect timing for a museum tour, right? The museum owner, Rollo Haynes, eventually lets Nish in after checking to make sure he's not carrying anything dangerous. Rollo used to work in medtech, and this whole place is basically his retirement project, a monument to his greatest mistakes. Nish spots what looks like an electronic hairnet, and Rollo's eyes light up and he breaks into a story about Dr. Peter Dawson. Dawson was an ER doctor struggling to diagnose patients. Rollo offered him the hairnet, a neutral implant that could make Dawson feel exactly what his patients felt, without the physical damage. A receiver was implanted into Dawson's head, and whoever had the hairnet on could transmit whatever they were feeling to Dawson. Pain, nausea, broken bones, all of it. The funny-looking net can do all of it. How crazy is that? It made treatment much easier, and it worked beautifully. Dawson saved lives. He even used it in the bedroom with his wife Madge, experiencing her pleasure alongside his own. Yep, for whatever reason, everything has to circle back to banging on this show.
Say a kid comes in obviously in pain. Doctors suspect appendicitis. They'd hook him up to Dawson just to be sure.
Anyway, things take a wild turn when a senator gets rushed in one day. The senator was poisoned, and sadly he died right there on the bed. And Dawson, he experiences death. 5 minutes of it. He comes back alive, but something's changed in him. Pain doesn't hurt anymore. Now it's pleasurable. He starts craving it, and now he starts delaying patients' treatment just to get a boner. The hospital realizes something's wrong with Dawson, so they send him home for a while. They work on fixing the implant, but Dawson's discovered something in the meantime. His own pain triggers the same high. Dawson spends a week breaking glass, hurting himself, trying anything to get that feeling back, but it's not enough anymore. Eventually, he finds someone on the street, tases the poor guy, and hooks him up to the diagnoser just so that he can torture him for the rush. The cops show up and find Dawson in a vegetative state, brain completely fried, still rock hard.
Still riding that high.
Okay, that last part isn't true, but Rollo added that detail himself. But speaking of uncomfortable situations, the AC in the museum is broken. Because of the sweltering heat, Rollo takes a bottle of water from Nish. Keep that detail in your back pocket, it's coming back later. Next, Rollo shows Nish a stuffed monkey. She's rightfully confused, but Rollo says it's one of the saddest things in the whole place. When he tells a story about Jack and Carrie. Jack and Carrie had a kid named Parker. One day, Carrie got hit by a truck when taking a family photo, knocking her into a coma. For years, Jack visited every week while Carrie laid there, unable to respond. That was until Rollo showed up with the comm box, a device that let Carrie answer yes or no questions while she was unconscious. But then Rollo had the great idea and pitched something better. Extract Carrie's consciousness and implant it in Jack's brain. She'd see through his eyes, feel through his body. Live again. Anyway, for Carrie's consciousness to be implanted, they'd have to euthanize her physical body. And since she could answer questions, Carrie said yes immediately.
Apple, she's saying apple. Hey, baby.
Hey, Jack.
At first, it's beautiful. She could feel things through Jack's body. She could even hug Parker through Jack. It almost feels like being alive again. Almost. Because reality sets in after a couple of weeks. Carrie is always there, watching everything, complaining about how Jack does his things. Jack has zero privacy and he can't even take care of his personal business, if you know what I mean. They're constantly fighting, and eventually Jack has had enough, and he goes back to Rollo and he offers Jack a compromise. A pause button. Now Jack can essentially hibernate Carrie whenever he wants.
Jack, don't you dare! Jack! Jack, I'm warning you!
When Jack finally unpauses her, weeks have passed. He kept her off so long she missed watching her son grow up, but they compromise. She gets weekends. Just weekends with her son. Then Jack meets Emily, the neighbor, and Carrie loses her mind watching them get close. Emily and Jack eventually go back to Rollo again. Even on the weekends, Carrie seems to be a pain in the ass for Jack. Yet again, Rollo has another idea. This time, it's a stuffed monkey. With this new technology, Rollo transfers Carrie's consciousness into the toy. She can see Parker through a camera, feel when the monkeys hug, and she can talk too. Well, just 2 phrases.
Monkey loves you. Monkey loves you.
Honestly, just kill Carrie for good, because at what point does this stop making sense? Back in reality, the UN made Rollo's technology illegal. You can't trap a human consciousness in something that can only express 2 emotions. It's inhumane. And they can't delete her either, so Carrie's still in the monkey till now. Rollo got fired over the issue, and that's why he started the museum. But he's not done yet. He hands Nish the monkey and leads her to the main attraction inside the glass cage. Clayton Lay, a fully conscious digital hologram of a convicted murderer. And of course, it comes with the whole consciousness bullshit. Rollo captured Clayton's consciousness right on the day of his execution, and he's kept in the hologram trapped ever since. Rollo makes money by getting tourists to pull a lever electrocuting Clayton, letting him feel pain all over again every single time. But only for 10 seconds. Anything beyond that would erase him permanently. At first, business boomed, but then protests started. Clayton's wife, Angelica, fought back, claiming he was innocent. The crowds thinned, and Rollo was just left with sadists, willing to pay extra for longer sessions. One guy paid cash for 14 seconds, and it fried Clayton's mind, so now he's barely even responsive. And it's at this point, things change a little bit. Nish asks why Rollo left some parts of the stories out. How Angelica came to visit what was left of Clayton, and how she went home and killed herself because she couldn't take it. Apparently, Angelica was Nish's mom, which means Clayton is her dad. Yeah, you got it. She's only there for revenge.
Happy birthday.
Rollo's choking now, struggling to breathe. Nish apologizes for the heat. Turns out, hacking digital AC is pretty easy, which is why it's been so unbearably hot this whole time. And that drink she gave him earlier? Yeah, Rollo probably shouldn't have accepted it. She poisoned it. She places the device on Rollo's temple and transfers his consciousness to Clayton's hologram, and gives Rollo a taste of his own medicine. As Rollo gets electrocuted, the hologram disappears and Nish gets a keychain showing Rob's face. Nish leaves the museum, picking up Carrie on her way out. Once they're clear, she yanks a cord near the air conditioning unit, setting it on fire, and soon enough the museum gets covered in smoke. Back in the car, Nish hangs the keychain from the rearview mirror, then glances at her reflection and asks her mom how she did. Apparently, her mom's consciousness has been living in her head the entire time.
How'd I do, Mom?
All good?
Just great, honey.
So Nish drives away, leaving the museum burning behind her. Now, OG Black Mirror fans might be wondering, wait a second, didn't Black Mirror do an interactive episode? And my friends, you are correct. Back in December of 2018, Netflix dropped Black Mirror Bandersnatch. The episode was about a programmer named Stefan in 1984 who's adapting a choose-your-own-adventure book into a video game while you, the viewer, make all of his choices. But we're not doing a recap of Bandersnatch here. That would take approximately 17 years.
Bandersnatch.
Bander what?
Bandersnatch.
Bandersnatch is a unique Black Mirror story in that it's interactive.
If you haven't experienced it yet, well, you can't. Netflix removed Bandersnatch in May of 25. That said, let's move on to Season 5. Episode 1 opens with Danny, a settled-down family man, and his wife, Theo, role-playing as strangers at a bar, which is honestly pretty tame compared to where this is headed. They hook up, and afterwards, Danny is chilling on the couch playing Striking Vipers, a fighting game with his buddy Carl. You know, just two bros, late-night gaming sessions, normal stuff. Fast forward 11 years, Danny is now married to Theo. They've got a kid, and he's basically living that suburban dad life. Carl shows up to Danny's birthday barbecue with a gift that's about to make things really complicated. It's Striking Vipers X, the new VR version of their old favorite game. What could possibly go wrong? Well, you're about to see. That night, they hop online to try it out. The game works similarly to Infinity in USS Callister back in Season 4. They attach this small device to their temple and they get transported into the game while their physical body remains. Carl picks Roxette, while Danny goes with Lance. And they're suddenly in these photorealistic fighter bodies. But here's the thing, they can both feel physical sensations whenever they hit, so every punch or kick, Danny feels pain in real life. Anyway, the game starts off fun, a totally normal experience until the end of the match when Carl's character falls onto Danny's lap and they legit kiss.
Why are you gay?
Danny immediately nopes out of the game, but things don't end there. Things get crazier. Over the next few weeks, Danny and Carl are having full-on VR relations as Lance and Roxette. Like, regularly. I'm pretty sure they're whispering no homo into each other's ears while they're, you know. Anyway, Theo's noticing Danny's suddenly not interested in actual real life with her, despite them trying for another kid. On their anniversary, which Danny forgot about, Theo takes him to dinner and asks what's going on, but Danny swears nothing's happening. After that date, Danny finally locks the game away and tells Carl they need to stop, and they actually do. At least until Danny's next birthday. 7 months later, Carl's back for Danny's birthday dinner. The second Theo leaves the room, Carl admits he's tried stuff with the NPCs and random peeps online, but nothing compares to Danny.
Think about it. Think about her. Roxy.
Stop it. Get some help.
These dudes hook up in the game again and actually meet in real life too to test if there's something between them. They actually kiss in real life, and even though there's absolutely no chemistry between them, it still doesn't make this any better. Thankfully, Danny regains his sanity right there and he tells Carl that this has to stop. Carl, for some reason, gets pissed. They start fighting in the street and cops arrest them both. When Theo picks up Danny from jail, the dude just sits in silence like a kid who got caught. In the final scene of the episode, it's Danny's birthday and they've got an arrangement now. Danny gets to play Striking Vipers with Carl one night a year, while Theo goes to bars and hooks up with strangers. This episode just doesn't stop being weird. Episode 2 opens with Chris, a rideshare driver in London who's got some serious issues with technology. This guy goes to a cafe and nearly has a full-blown panic attack because everyone's on their phones. Chris drives for an app called Hitcher, and we learn that his fiancée died in a car crash 3 years ago involving a drunk driver. He goes to therapy where he meets Haley, whose daughter killed herself 18 months earlier. They bond over their shared trauma and, well, they sleep together. Just like everyone else in this show does. When they're done, Haley tells Chris about this book full of passwords she's written, desperately trying to log into her daughter's persona, social media account. She wants to find out why her daughter committed. Haley only gets 3 attempts per day before lockout, so she's been doing this for over a year.
This week I'm into places we went on holiday. I'm her mum. You'd think they'd give me the password to my own daughter's account, but no.
Chris discovers this disturbing daily ritual, and you can see the wheels turning in his head. The next morning, Chris picks up Jaden, an intern at Smithereens, a massive social media company. Jaden's glued to his phone, which lets Chris drive them out to the countryside where he pulls a gun and announces he's kidnapping him. Yeah, things escalate pretty quickly. Jaden's supposed to go in the trunk, but he's claustrophobic, and as the sweet person that he is, Chris just lets Jaden sit in the back seat with a bag over his head and zip-tied wrists. As they're driving, 2 cops spot the hooded hostage and chase Chris down. Chris swerves to avoid some teenagers on bikes and ends up stalled in a field, now surrounded by police. The teenagers start live-streaming the whole thing on Smithereens, just like people do today. Chris learns Jaden's been an intern for 1 week, but he forces Jaden to call the most senior person he knows. So Chris demands to speak with CEO Billy Bauer, but Billy is on a silent retreat, so only the COO Penelope can attend to his issue.
I'm actually the COO.
Okay, and?
Well, it might be quicker if I can present it.
Penelope works with the FBI and British police to dig through Chris's social media and discover the car accident that killed his fiancée. Meanwhile, they finally track down Billy at his rental. He's annoyed at being interrupted, but realizes he needs to get on the phone. That's when Chris drops the real reason for all of this. He was the one at fault for the accident that killed his fiancée. He was checking a Smithereens notification while driving when the crash happened, but the drunk driver took all of the blame. Chris wants Billy to admit that social media is deliberately designed to be addictive. Billy, surprisingly, agrees to this. He even admits he's been considering leaving the company because he's disgusted with what it's become. Chris makes one final request. He wants Billy to get him in touch with Persona's CEO so Haley can get her daughter's password. Billy comes through and Haley gets the call. Finally, Chris goes to release Jaden, but Chris tries to kill himself. Jaden tries to stop him, and in the process, they start fighting over the gun. The police chief thinks Jaden is in danger and gives the order to fire. And the episode ends with Billy, Penelope, and people worldwide getting a notification about what happened. They read it, process it for about 2 seconds, and then just go back to scrolling. The last episode in Season 5 opens with lonely teen Rachel Goggins eating lunch alone in her school cafeteria, watching an Ashley O music video on her phone. After school, Rachel's dad, Kevin, picks her up in his exterminator truck where Jack, her sister, is already riding shotgun. At home, Jack plays guitar in their shared room while Rachel watches Ashley O's interview on TV. Ashley drops the usual inspiration nonsense about dreams and destiny before her Aunt Catherine, who's also her manager, reminds her offstage to promote her new product. Ashley picks up a doll version of herself called Ashley 2.
Hey there, I'm Ashley 2. What? What's your name?
They call me Busy G.
Rachel is immediately hooked. Jack, not so much. Behind the scenes, Ashley sits at her piano composing something new. Catherine hears the music from downstairs and comes up to check on her. She tells Ashley the tune is nice, but the lyrics are too different from her usual style, basically saying this stuff won't sell like her pop hits do. Catherine then asks if Ashley's been taking her medication, but Ashley insists she's totally fine. Meanwhile, Rachel couldn't stop thinking about that doll, so she asks Kevin at breakfast if she can have an Ashley 2 for her birthday. The guy says he'll think about it. Cut to Rachel's birthday, she opens her gift to find Kevin actually bought the doll for her. Rachel absolutely adores the doll and tells Ashley, too, everything about her life, including the death of her mom, Genevieve. Jack, on the other hand, couldn't give a rat's ass about the plastic toy. Meanwhile, Catherine meets with Dr. Monk and Jackson Habanero, their technical director. Catherine is concerned that Ashley's behind on the next album. Matter of fact, Ashley hasn't actually written any songs. Dr. Monk offers some mild hallucinogens if she's feeling uncreative, but Catherine says the medication he already gave her isn't working. Monk thinks they should increase her dose, but that's when Habanero gets an idea. We don't hear what it is, which is not a good sign. Backstage at one of Ashley's concerts, Dr. Monk hands Ashley 2 pills. She takes some, waits for everyone to leave, then spits them out and adds them to a tin where she's been stashing dozens of others. Her luck runs out pretty quick, though. Bear, their security guy, shows Catherine and Dr. Monk surveillance footage of Ashley hiding the pills. Dr. Monk then produces the tin with Ashley's journal, which is full of her venting about how much she resents Catherine. Yeah, not so great. Later at dinner, Catherine confronts Ashley with her journal and pill tin, accusing her of planning a fake overdose. Ashley then reveals she's been collecting evidence against Catherine and Dr. Monk, and their illegal meds give her an out from her contract. But before she can leave, Ashley suddenly feels sick. Catherine then makes a cynical comment that an overdose of pills won't kill her. It'll just put her in a chemical coma. Yeah, Catherine put all of the pills in Ashley's food, and Ashley immediately falls unconscious. Meanwhile, Kevin shows off his latest invention in the basement, a humane mousetrap that uses a fake mouse to stun real ones with electricity so they can be relocated. Great idea in theory, except his first test fried a rat because the voltage was way too high, completely defeating the purpose.
Is it okay?
He's totally fine. He's just stunned.
Then on their TV, news breaks out that Ashley is fighting for her life after an allergic reaction to shellfish, with reports saying she's in an irreversible coma. Cut to the hospital where Ashley's getting an MRI scan. Dr. Monk says that her creative center is still very active, and it's immediately obvious that Catherine's trying to cut out Ashley. Dr. Monk scans Ashley's whole body and replicates her on the screen. 6 months later, Jack and Rachel are watching TV when a news report about Ashley O comes on. The report shows Catherine thanking Dr. Monk for saving Ashley's life. The reporter explains that Ashley's music career didn't end there thanks to the revolutionary technology from Habanero. They're able to read her brainwaves while she composes music in her dreams. They extract the songs and use voice recordings from Ashley 2 dolls to have Ashley's voice sing them. Apparently, nobody in this world has a problem with the blatant intellectual exploitation happening here. Anyway, as Ashley 2 watches the program, she starts glitching, moving, and speaking erratically. Jack comes in and they watch as the Ashley 2 falls on the floor before powering down completely. Jack plugs Ashley into a computer and they find a weird spot in Ashley 2's brain. Jack deletes it, but what was in the small spot spreads to the doll's whole brain. Well, Jack just deleted the limiter that kept the doll from using all of her brain. Apparently, Ashley's entire mind was copied into the dolls, and now she wants to tell Rachel and Jack everything about how Catherine tortured her. Ashley, too, explains that Catherine controlled every aspect of her career and now has her exactly where she wants her. Rachel's horrified and says they need to help Ashley. Ashley says she kept a diary on her computer and recorded conversations. She just needs to get into the house to download it, and asks them to take her there. At first, Jack doesn't want to do it, but Rachel's able to convince her, and together they head to Ashley's house. They arrive just in time to drive in, when Catherine and Habanero's car leaves. At the house, Jack, wearing some of her dad's exterminator gear, rings the doorbell. Bear answers, and Jack tells him she had an appointment for the rodent problem. He says they don't have rodents, but Jack manages to persuade him to let her and Rachel in. While Jack is working, Rachel excuses herself to use the bathroom, and that's when she takes Ashley 2 up to the room where Ashley's real body is laying in a coma. Ashley 2 has Rachel watch the stairs while she copies the files. Then Ashley wraps herself in the cord keeping her machines on and unplugs it. Rachel is horrified, but Ashley says she did what she had to do. Dr. Monk gets the system warning while he's on the toilet, and he calls Bear to go check on Ashley, but Jack takes Bear out by throwing her dad's fake mouse at him, stunning him just long enough. Upstairs, the real Ashley suddenly wakes up, but since she's restrained, there's no escape. Jack and Rachel get behind a couch as Dr. Monk comes upstairs to see what's going on. Monk calls Catherine, telling her about the whole thing, but Catherine doesn't care. She just orders Monk to sedate Ashley again. As Monk prepares the injection, Jack hits him from behind. He pins Jack against the pillar, and Rachel grabs the syringe and jams it into his back. Monk drops and they free Ashley. As they help her escape, Ashley asks who they are, but there's really no time to catch up. They need to stop Catherine, who's currently at an event launching Ashley Eternal, a hologram version of Ashley O. Back at the car, Ashley and the girls are going as fast as they can to reach the event while being chased by the cops. When they get to the stadium, Ashley directs Jack to the back entrance. Jack drives backstage, crashing through equipment and shutting down the show. A cop gets out and orders Jack and Rachel out of the car. Catherine, for some reason, just collapses on the floor, shivering like she's having a full breakdown. Then Ashley emerges from the other side and flips Catherine off. Needless to say, Catherine is At the end of the episode, Ashley is now going by Ashley No. Ashley's completely ditched the pop princess image and is finally making the music that she wants to make. Down in the audience, Rachel watches with Ashley 2 by her side, both vibe into the show. Moving on to Season 6, Episode 1 opens with Joan. An average person living an average life on an average Tuesday, except today, Joan gets to ruin someone's day because she has to fire an employee named Sandy. Sandy's understandably devastated, but hey, it's the board's decision. Joan's hands are tied. But firing Sandy is just the tip of the iceberg, because later Joan goes to therapy and just unloads everything. Her job feels meaningless, she feels like a middleman pushing papers. Her love life isn't any better. Her fiancé, Krish, is a great guy, but he's vanilla. Joan is still hung up on her ex, Mac, who made life exciting. She settled for Krish because he was safe. She doesn't feel like the main character in her own life, just going through the motions on autopilot. And then, as if the universe is testing her, Mac texts that he's in town. He wants to meet up, and Joan says yes. Come on, Joan. They meet at a bar, and Joan immediately starts with the whole "we can't do this" speech. Joan tells Mac that she can't trust him, that he broke her heart, and that she's with Krish now. But then she kisses Mac. Great decision-making, Joan.
No, you can't leave Krish. Can't? Yeah, no, you can't leave Krish.
Anyway, she immediately pulls back, suddenly remembers being engaged, and leaves the place. That night, Joan comes home and lies to Krish, saying she was at a goodbye party. They settle in on the couch to pick something to watch on Streamberry. Joan's scrolling through options when she sees it. Joan is Awful, starring Salma Hayek. The thumbnail looks uncomfortably familiar. Krish wants to watch it. Joan's hesitant, but she hits play. The show starts and it's Joan's morning exactly. The alarm, brushing teeth, breakfast, and a text from Mac that she hid from Krish. And somehow every other person Joan knows is watching the show too. Joan's coworker Eric, Sandy, even Mac's watching it while taking a shit. Then Joan's phone starts blowing up with texts. Her mom saw it, her dad, her friends, anyone with Streamberry can watch this. Joan is naturally freaking out, but Krish is trying to calm her down. That's until the show gets to the therapy session. TV Joan tells her therapist that Krish is boring and vanilla, while Mac is exciting. But it keeps going. TV Joan meets Mac at the bar, and they kiss right in front of Krish. Well, immediately Krish starts packing. Joan follows him out to the car, begging, lying, saying she hasn't seen Mac in ages, but Krish is not having it. He gets in his car and drives off.
It's convenient, Joan. Goodbye.
Krish, please don't go.
You're probably wondering how this is even possible. Well, Joan meets with her lawyer and she explains everything. Turns out Joan signed away her rights in the Streamberry terms and conditions that she never read. Streamberry is legally in the clear. Joan then asks about suing Salma Hayek instead, because sure, why not? But the lawyer explains it's actually Salma's CGI copy generated by AI. She licensed her image to Streamberry and they could make Salma Hayek do whatever they wanted. And for the big question, Joan asks how they even know what she's doing in the first place. Well, the answer is her phone. Joan's phone is always listening. That's how they know everything. To ease her stress, Joan makes the perfectly reasonable decision of visiting Mac at his hotel. But things don't go as planned because the guy can't get it up because it's going to be on the show. Anyway, Joan is visibly pissed and she leaves the room to continue watching the show, which is currently playing Selma's meeting with her lawyer. That's when she gets an idea, and oh boy, is it an idea. See, if she can't legally sue Salma, she'll just do something so horrific that Salma herself will want to get involved. So Joan loads up on fast food and laxatives, puts on a cheerleader outfit, crashes a church wedding, and takes a massive dump on the floor. Ugh, that's gross. And yeah, later that day, the show aired with the same scene in the church, only this time with Salma Hayek. Now that Salma's cheeks are out in the open, the actress is forced to take action.
I am Roman Catholic. My grandmother Rosa was going to be a nun. She might die when she sees these.
At first, Salma wants to sue Streamberry, but her agent shows her the contract she signed. Salma gave them permission to use her likeness for anything. Salma gets pissed at her agent, and she fires him for not reading through the terms of the agreement. Meanwhile, Joan's crazy plan worked because Salma Hayek actually shows up at Joan's door. Joan thinks she's there to fight, but Salma just wants to talk. Joan apologizes and explains that she was trying to get Salma's attention so Salma could force Streamberry to shut the show down. But we already know Salma can't legally do that. Salma grabs a newspaper with Streamberry CEO Mona Javadi's face on it and says she's the real villain. Since they can't stop Streamberry legally, they decide to do it the old-fashioned way. Break into headquarters and destroy the computer that started all of this. They just need to get into Mona's office. And how exactly are they getting in? Well, Selma can just walk right through the front door because, hey, she's Salma Hayek. Selma walks into Streamberry, tells the receptionist she has an appointment with Mona, and then asks for a private bathroom. Once she's away from the desk, Selma sneaks off and lets Joan inside. They make their way through the building while Mona's doing an interview about the show's success. According to Mona, the show is powered by a computer, an all-powerful quantum computer that generates personalized shows instantly. And this is just the test run. Mona is planning to make tailored content for every single Streamberry user. Meanwhile, Selma and Joan find the quantum computer room and run into Michael Cera, who's monitoring everything. He tries calling security, but Selma overpowers him. Joan looks at the monitor and realizes the actress playing her is Annie Murphy, not Salma Hayek. Naturally, she's confused, so Michael Cera explains she's not the original Joan. Somewhere out there is the real source Joan, living her actual life. That life got adapted into a streaming show. The Joan standing here is a character in that show, a fictional version of the real Joan. She's a fictive level 1, basically one step away from a real person. When Source Joan watches her show, she sees Annie Murphy. When this Joan watches, she sees Salma Hayek at fictive level 2, and the fictive levels just keep going. Joan still doesn't understand Michael's rant, so she knocks him out and grabs his badge. Salma conveniently finds an axe, and she hands it over to Joan, who gets into the computer room to destroy it. Salma guards the door, and as Joan raises the axe, Mona walks in to warn them.
They're coming! Do it! Do it!
Okay, if you destroy that, you destroy everybody inside every fictive universe about this one.
Clearly, they're living in a matrix, and if Joan destroys the computer, she'll kill everyone and all the fictive levels above them. Billions of souls who think they're real will just stop existing. Salma immediately tells Joan to put the axe down, but Joan realizes something. If she's standing here with an axe right now, that means Source Joan already did this exact thing in real life. This isn't Joan making a choice, it's just replaying what already happened. So Joan swings the axe. Everything starts glitching and disappearing around them, and when it clears, Source Joan and Annie Murphy appear in their place. Celebrating their victory. In episode 1's final scene, Source Joan's in therapy months later. She's dating again, taking it slow, being her own boss at a new job where she treats her staff well. She finally feels like the main character in her own life. Episode 2 opens with filmmaker Davis McArdle and his girlfriend Pia arriving in his sleepy Scottish hometown of Loch to shoot a nature documentary about some vigilante guy protecting rare eggs. They're staying at Davis's mom, Janet. They're telling her their plans, but things get a little bit awkward fast when Pia trash talks the local police for not doing the job the vigilante guy's doing. Problem is, Davis's dead father, Kenneth, was a cop. Not a good first impression. But Pia's about to stumble onto something way more interesting than an egg theft. At the local pub, the owner, Stuart, explains why this beautiful lakeside town is basically a ghost town now. Back in 1997, a honeymoon couple named Dawn and Simon Chalice vanished without a trace. Kenneth investigated and journalists swarmed in, but then Princess Diana died and the whole story got buried. Everyone forgot about the couple. That is, until local weirdo Ian Adair got drunk at the pub one night and made some creepy comments about Dawn. Stuart's dad, Richard, who owned the pub back then, kicked Ian out. Ian threatened to shoot up the place, so Richard reported him to Kenneth. Kenneth goes to check on him, but Ian shot him in the shoulder. Kenneth crawled back to his car while Ian went inside and killed his own parents before turning the gun on himself.
Ian opens the upstairs window and shoots him.
Here's where it gets really dark, though. Police searched Ian's farm and found a hidden torture bunker in the cellar. He had been abducting people for years. 8 victims total, including Dawn and Simon. He'd torture them for weeks before burying them in the fields. Kenneth survived the shooting, but died later from an infection. So yeah, Janet blames Ian for killing her husband too. Pia's eyes light up at the story. Forget the egg guy, this is their documentary. Davis isn't thrilled about turning his dad's death into content, but Pia's relentless. She promises they'll honor Kenneth's memory and give him a voice in the story. Stuart's totally on board with this because he thinks it'll bring tourists back to Loch Henry. He even gives them his dead mom's box containing tapes and newspaper about the case. They pitch it to producer Kate Cesar at Historic, who loves the personal angle, but wants something new, so Pia lies and says they can access the actual torture room in Adair's house. Stuart, Davis, and Pia then suit up to break into Adair's house. They're filming on an old VHS camera using a tape from Davis's mom's favorite show, Bergerac, to match the police footage aesthetic from back then. When they get to the bunker, Stuart pulls out a bottle of lemon juice to fake some stains under UV light. Except when they turn on the black light, they don't need any help. The whole room lights up like a crime scene. Even the ceiling.
Don't think we need the lemon juice.
On the drive back, they're goofing around and not focused on driving. Davis doesn't notice a truck coming around a blind curve until it's too late.
Gluing sultana to someone's cock is not a plausible case.
They crash head-on, and Davis ends up in the hospital with a concussion. The truck driver happens to be Richard, who is also hospitalized. Pia and Stuart only sustain minor injuries. After the others leave the hospital, Richard limps over to Davis's bed with this look of absolute dread on his face, and tells him he has to stop the film. He's about to explain why, but the episode cuts away to Janet's house before he can get the words out. Pia is digitizing their dungeon footage when the tape ends and an old Bergerac recording starts playing. Except it's not Bergerac. It's Ian Adair's camera. The footage shows Dawn and Simon tied up in their underwear. And then the camera pans over to Kenneth.
Because the mistress is going to have fun with the both of you. Does that sound like fun?
Eesh, things just went from 0 to 100. The mistress turns out to be Janet, and she walks in wearing a red Mardi Gras mask, holding a power drill. She blocks the camera as she revs it up, and the couple starts screaming. Pia slams the laptop shut just as Janet walks in to announce dinner's ready. They sit down to eat shepherd's pie in the most uncomfortable silence imaginable. Pia glances over Janet's shoulder and then spots the mask hanging on the wall. Janet cheerfully mentions Kenneth gave it to her during their fun times together. Pia excuses herself to the bathroom, frantically tries to call Davis, but there's no signal. She attempts to sneak out for a walk, but Janet follows her in a car. When Janet gets too insistent about giving her a ride, Pia runs. Janet chases her with a flashlight, yelling that she won't hurt her, but Pia scrambles down an embankment, trying to cross a stream. She slips, hits her head, and dies. Oof. Janet just stands there screaming before finally driving home. Back at the house, Janet pulls out a box of Polaroids showing Kenneth with various victims. She stacks all the Bergerac tapes next to it and writes a note that says, "For your film, Mom." Janet proceeds to put on her red mask and hang herself. The show cuts to Davis getting his makeup done for an interview. A trailer plays for his documentary, now produced by Streamberry, revealing the horrific truth. Kenneth and Janet were the real masterminds. Ian was just their patsy. Kenneth killed the Adair family to cover it up and shot himself to make it look like Ian acted alone. At the Loch side inn, Stuart and a packed bar cheer as Loch Henry, Truth Will Out, wins a BAFTA award. Richard sits alone at a table, silent. Davis awkwardly poses for pictures with the other award recipients. Davis got everything they wanted, just not the way they imagined. Episode 3 opens with astronaut David Ross spending time with his wife Jessica and their 2 kids Lily and Ricky before they head out to the movies. Meanwhile, fellow astronaut Cliff Stanfield is at his remote countryside home with his wife Lana and their son Henry. After the movie, David's family headed home. David and Jessica have an intimate evening together until David's watch beeps, meaning he has to go. Over at Cliff's place, his watch beeps too. Both men sit in a device that looks like a reclining chair in their homes, and it seems like they fall asleep. They wake up in beds on a space station. Turns out they've been controlling replica bodies on Earth this whole time, while their real bodies are in space on a 6-year mission. Right now, they suit up to fix a small issue that made the watch beep. David helps Cliff into a spacesuit and watches as he goes outside to make repairs. Afterward, they chat. Cliff mentions he's still just settling into the new countryside home, and they agree to see each other Friday for their physical, and then back to their respective sleep pods to return to Earth. Back on Earth, David wakes up to a noise downstairs. He grabs a baseball bat and finds 4 hippies in his living room: Kappa, Theta, Sigma, and Epsilon. It seems they've somehow figured out David isn't human. David threatens them with a bat, but they swarm him and pin him down. Kappa cuts off his arm, revealing an electronic core underneath.
You are nothing natural, my friend. Fuck.
Seeing this, they go upstairs to get David's family. David gets hogtied on the couch. Jessica is begging for their children's lives. She swears only David is a machine, showing them her blood. Kappa believes her, but says it doesn't matter. They are all hell-bent on destroying the family. The hippies kill Jessica and the children while David watches. Then they pour gas on his replica and light it on fire. Meanwhile, Cliff wakes to the phone ringing and learns what happened. On the station, Cliff finds David crying in a room full of plants. He tries to offer condolences, but David screams at him to get out. Back on Earth, Lana reads the newspaper. Apparently, the gang turned themselves into the authorities, but Lana can't stop thinking about Jessica and the kids. Cliff mentions they destroyed David's replica too, and here's the problem. While Cliff gets to be on Earth, David is alone in space for the next 4 years. Lana asks if they can make David another replica, but it's impossible. And even if they could, David has nothing left on Earth. In space, David goes through the motions on the station, working out, maintenance, eating alone. He watches a grainy video feed of his family's funeral. Later, Cliff finds David standing in the airlock in a daze. Cliff asks if David's fine, and although the guy says yes, it's obvious he's still shaken from the loss.
He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters.
Back on Earth, Lana asks Cliff if David wanted to throw himself out of the ship. The ship needs 2 people, so if he did, they'd both die. Lana suggests letting David use Cliff's replica link so he can visit Earth again, just to take a walk and feel the breeze. Since David's own replica was destroyed, he's been trapped in the station with nothing waiting for him to come back home. Cliff starts the process, and David wakes up in Cliff's replica body on Earth. Lana takes him to the forest, where he touches leaves and picks up a caterpillar. The simple act of feeling nature again breaks David, and he starts crying. Back on the station, David thanks Cliff and takes out a sketch pad to draw. Later, he shows Cliff a detailed drawing of his house, from memory. David offers to go back and paint it properly, as a thank you, and Cliff says he'll think about it. Cliff talks it over with Lana, and it would just be an hour once a week, and David can set up in the barn. Lana agrees, and David returns to Earth to paint. Over time, he teaches Lana to paint, guiding her brush. Eventually, David shows Lana the finished painting. He's added her to it, standing on the porch. She's flattered. He puts on a record and pulls her in for a dance. But then David gets too intimate and places his hands down Lana's body, exactly like he used to do with Jessica. Lana realizes what's happening and breaks away, leaving the barn. Later, David finds Lana in the kitchen and tries to convince her that what happened between them is okay, that Cliff won't find out. Lana explodes, accuses him of manipulating her, and reminds him that this isn't his home. He isn't her husband, and he needs to leave. During David's next visit, Lana tells David his things are in the barn and leaves him to paint. On the station, Cliff wanders around the ship, and then he finds drawings of his family in David's space, and several of Lana, including nude ones. Freaking hell, man! When David returns, Cliff confronts him with the drawings.
It's not what... My wife! You creep! My wife! Mine!
David says it's just a fantasy, as if that justifies what he did. David tells him that everything he had is gone, while Cliff has it all and doesn't even care. Back on Earth, Cliff destroys David's paintings and confronts Lana about it. She swears nothing happened, but admits she's just lonely all the time. Cliff pulls her into a hug. When Cliff returns to the station, David wants to apologize to Lana in person, and Cliff shuts that down hard. He tells David that Lana finds his visits offensive. Lana doesn't want him anywhere near her, and David will never see her again. But David, he's not handling rejection well. Later, we see him just watching Cliff sleep. Then Cliff gets called for an emergency, a coolant leak. David helps him suit up and closes the airlock. Cliff heads outside to check the damage, but there's nothing there. No leak. No damage. He tries to get back inside, but the door won't open and David doesn't answer the comms. When it finally opens, David claims he was in the bathroom. As Cliff takes back his stuff, he notices something's missing. His tag. David slowly pulls it from his pocket. Cliff immediately figures out that something's wrong, and he races to his bunk and sends himself to Earth. He wakes up with blood on his replica's hands. He calls for Lana as he walks through the house. Blood streaks on the wall, and the episode ends with David back at the station. Across the room, with the man who may just have destroyed everything he had on Earth. Oh, jeez. Episode 4 opens with a lady named Beau. Beau is a paparazzo, staking out a motel parking lot. She's been there for 2 hours waiting for her target when 2 men finally exit a room. She snaps pictures. One of them is Justin Camley, a closeted actor. Justin runs up to her car, desperate, offering $500 for the photos as Beau drives off. Beau sells the pictures to Nick, a tabloid editor, for $300 each. He's already crafting the headline about Justin's secret male lover. Later, while cooking in her apartment, Beau sees breaking news. Justin Camley died by suicide after his relationship was exposed. At a nightclub that night, Beau's fellow paparazzi, Hector, Whitty, and Duke, tell her it's not her fault. She was just doing her job. When a tip comes in about actress Sydney Alberti, the pack descends, shouting questions and trying to take her photos. Beau hangs back, watching the feeding frenzy, and later, she walks away alone. Meanwhile, in the Czech Republic, actress Mazey Day wraps filming on day 2 of a fantasy movie. Her assistant hands her a jacket with psychotropic mushrooms on it. That night, Mazey eats alone while practicing her accent. She's dancing around when she drops her wine glass and cuts her finger. Then Mazey grabs her keys and drives into the rainy night. While driving, Mazey gets distracted, fixating on her bleeding finger. Suddenly, she hears a loud thud. She stops, she sees a body in the road behind her, and panics. The next morning on set, Mazey's barely holding it together. In her trailer, she takes diazepam before filming. 2 weeks later, Beau's listening to a news report saying that Mazey Day has vanished from the set. Things aren't going great for Beau either. Beau's roommate awkwardly confronts her about her late rent and the groceries she's been stealing. She swears she'll get the money. Later, Hector tracks Beau down at a coffee shop. Hector knows Beau quit the paparazzi game, but he needs help finding Mazey Day. Nick's offering $30,000 for the first picture and $40,000 if Mazey looks like a junkie. Beau's hesitant, but she really needs that payday, so she calls her old informant, JP. Through JP and some detective work at Mazey's favorite noodle shop, Beau discovers Mazey's hiding at a producer's house in the hills. Mazey stakes it out overnight. The next morning, a black SUV rushes onto the property. Inside, Dr. Dmitry Babich, an addiction specialist, tells Mazey he's taking her somewhere isolated. Beau follows the SUV deep into the mountains until it stops at a diner. Beau tries to get a photo, but the driver slashes all 4 of her tires and drives off. Inside the diner, the owner, Terry, mentions the only place nearby is Cedarwood Retreat, a rehab center that someone just rented out for the entire weekend. Everyone, including the staff, were sent home. Beau puts 2 and 2 together and figures that it has to be Mazey. Beau calls Hector, and when he arrives on his motorcycle, they track down Cedarwood. The place is surrounded by a tall fence, and before they can figure out how to get in, Whitty and Duke show up. Apparently, they put a tracker on Hector's bike. After some arguing, all 4 dig under the fence and slip through. They spot Dr. Babich on a balcony with Mazey's driver, then sneak inside the place once they leave. Inside, they find Mazey chained to the floor, feverish and shaking. While the guys start taking photos, Beau works to break the lock and free Mazey. For some reason, Mazey keeps telling them to leave and to run away. Beau frees her just as Mazey looks up at the full moon through the skylight. Suddenly, Mazey gets a flashback of the night of the accident. She got bitten by a wolf when she was checking out the body. Mazey starts transforming into a wolf, and before our paparazzis get the picture, it's a bit too late. Although Beau and Hector were able to get out of the place, Whitty and Duke didn't make it. Beau and Hector crash their motorcycle into an approaching car and run on foot through the woods, with Mazey still chasing them. They burst into the diner and barricade the door. A police deputy inside tries to handcuff Beau for causing a scene when Mazey crashes through from the kitchen. Mazey mauls Hector, then lunges at the deputy. He fires at the wolf, but hits Terry instead, killing him. The deputy's gun slides to Beau, who's hiding under a table. As Mazey lunges at her, Beau fires. Mazey collapses, transforming back into her human form, bleeding and broken. The dying Hector hands Beau his camera while Mazey begs Beau to shoot her. Beau walks over and places the gun in Mazey's hand instead. As Mazey presses the barrel to her own head, Beau raises the camera. From outside the diner, all we hear is a gunshot and a flash of light. The last episode of Season 6 opens with Northern England, 1979. Meet Nita. She's that weird, secluded girl who gravitates towards places most people find creepy. She works at Post-it's department store, selling shoes, eating lunch alone, and daydreams about hurting the people who mistreat her. One day during lunch, her coworker Vicky makes Nita clock back in early to help a customer, Keith Holligan. Nita whispers that Keith murdered his wife, but Vicky shrugs it off. The judge ruled it manslaughter, so far as the law is concerned, Keith's in the clear. While ringing up Keith's shoes, he asks Nita to write down her number for him. She fantasizes about strangling him right there. Instead, she just hands him his receipt. After work, Nita passes Michael Smart campaigning in the street, talking about their town's problems. Litter, crime, the failing government. The next day at work, Nita's boss, Mr. Duncan, pulls her aside. Her lunch smells too strong and might get into the shoe leather, so Duncan suggests she eat it in the basement instead. In the basement, Nita finds an old roll-top desk with newspaper clippings. She opens a small drawer, accidentally cuts her finger on it, and pulls out a wooden talisman with 2 prongs on it. That night, while Nita's watching TV, a voice suddenly says, "Hello." That voice belongs to Gap. Gap is a demon, and I find it hilarious that he has a British accent.
We've got to work together. Can you pick me up? Come on, pick me up.
He explains that by anointing the talisman with her blood, they're now bound. When Nita finally says yes and lets him in, the talisman symbol changes from 2 prongs to 3. And a Gap appears as this horned creature. Seeing the absolute terror on Nita's face, he shifts into Bobby Farrell from Boney M. Damn, he's got some style.
I peered into your soul, and apparently this is a physical look you find appealing. So...
Anyway, Gap tells Nita she has to perform a sacrifice. 3 human sacrifices, actually. 1 each day over the next 3 days, or the world ends on May Day. At first, Nita thinks this whole thing is some kind of prank, but Gap is dead serious. To prove it, he shows her a vision of the world consumed by fire if she fails to carry out the sacrifices. A neighbor, Tim Simons, overhears her talking and asks if she's okay. Gap whispers that Tim's perfect for the sacrifice. He shows Nita the truth, and apparently Tim molests his 8-year-old daughter Laura every night. And if it continues, Laura will kill herself at 28 because of it. Nita picks up a brick, swings it, and Tim falls into the river. And that's when things really start going south. When they get home, Gap shows Nita the talisman. 1 line is gone. 2 more to go. The next day, police find Tim's body. Detective Len Fisher and his partner Susie start investigating. Meanwhile, Gap pressures Nita at work. He suggests her coworker Vicky, who steals from the register, or this guy Rod, who beats his future wife for decades.
I think we're good. I'll just go and have a little look, that's right.
Just do it. No one will miss her.
That evening, Nita is watching a show when Gap asks if she wants the apocalypse to happen. He changes the channel to show politicians talking about nuclear weapons. He says that's where they're heading, and she's the only person who can stop it. Nita resists him again until Gap points out Keith Holligan. Remember him? That guy that murdered his wife? Nita agrees.
Perfect location. There are no witnesses. You should rush him.
Follows Keith to the pub, and then heads back to his place with him. At first, Keith thinks Nita is a cheap girl, but in his bedroom, Keith realizes what she's there for and accepts it. He knows he deserves to die for killing his wife. Nita hits him with a hammer just before midnight, but Keith's brother Chris comes home to Nita. Gap says there can't be witnesses, and after a brief struggle, Nita stabs Chris with a knife and kills him. We all thought Nita's mission was complete, but apparently it isn't. Gap realizes that Keith's death didn't count. Keith was a murderer, and apparently only humans who haven't killed are accepted. It means the world got lucky Chris showed up before the deadline. Gap admits that this is his first assignment, and if he fails, he'll be cast into a cosmic void forever. The next day at work, Laura Simons comes in to buy shoes for her dad's funeral. Gap tells Nita that Laura's not mourning. The little girl is relieved. Nita spared her 5 years of abuse. Then Mr. Duncan brings in Michael Smart, the politician Nita saw campaigning earlier. Nita demands Gap show her Michael's future, and she sees him getting expelled from the Tories for being too racist, and launching a war on immigrants, which means he needs to go. Later that night, Detective Len visits Nita's house and asks about the pub, about Keith. But Nita lies smoothly, telling him she doesn't remember seeing Keith there. Gap's impressed by how well she pulled it off, but Len doesn't buy it for a second. Later that night, as Nita drives to find Michael, Gap warns her Len's tailing them. Meanwhile, Michael notices Nita's been tailing him. She rear-ends his car, but they both keep driving. Nita forces Michael's car off the road and into a tree. Nita grabs her hammer and approaches as Michael crawls from the wreckage.
Well, help me then.
Damn, Nita hits Michael twice, but then Len arrives and stops her before she can finish him. He begs her to put the hammer down, and Nita tells him if she doesn't kill Michael by midnight, there will be war. Len says they'll deal with that if it comes to it. But please, just put the hammer down. She repeats that she can't. Then she apologizes to Gap and hugs Len. Later at the police station, Nita watches as the clock ticks towards midnight. Detective Susie asks about the people she killed. Nita admits that Chris just turned up at the wrong time. She told them everything. The talisman, Gap, Tim, Keith. Speaking of, Susie shows Nita the talisman they found in her jacket. Now it looks like an ordinary domino. Nita insists Gap was real as she watches the final seconds tick away. The ticking stops and Nita opens her eyes. Nothing happens. It's past midnight. No fire, no destruction. The clock just keeps working. Len thinks Nita's mind is gone, and Susie feels a bit sorry for her. Suddenly, they hear a siren in the distance, and everyone rushes outside. Meanwhile, Gap appears to Nita in her cell. She tells him she failed. He did too. They're casting him out to eternal oblivion. Gap asks her to come with him, and Nita decides to give it a try. Outside, Len and Susie watch through the window with a crowd as bombs drop from the sky.
Jesus Christ, lift me.
Inside, Nita and Gap leave together, hand in hand. Season 7 is the final season of Black Mirror. Starting with episode 1, we open with Amanda and Mike, a teacher and a welder, who are genuinely, sincerely happy together. Their life's pretty much perfect except for two things. They can't seem to have a baby, and Amanda's been getting worse and worse headaches recently. After their wedding anniversary, which they celebrate at the same hotel they got married in, Amanda suddenly collapses at work. At the hospital, Mike is told Amanda has a brain tumor that can't be safely removed. She'll almost certainly never wake up from her coma. But a doctor slips Mike an unofficial referral to an experimental procedure. Mike meets with Gaynor from a startup called Rivermind. Gaynor explains the process. They'll download the function of Amanda's affected brain tissue into a computer, remove the tumor, then replace it with synthetic tissue. The new tissue will receive Amanda's consciousness back from their servers. The surgery is completely free, but it comes with a catch. Actually, two catches. Amanda will need to sleep more to ease server strain. She'll also have to stay within coverage areas. One more thing, there's a $300 monthly subscription. Oh, I don't like where this is going. Anyway, Mike signs up. They get the procedure done and Amanda survives totally fine. Over the next year, they're happy, though Mike's taking on extra shifts and overtime to cover the subscription, while Amanda sleeps more and can't work as much. Their anniversary rolls around again, and they head to their usual hotel. But when Mike drives out of the county, Amanda suddenly collapses. He panics and turns around, and she just wakes up like nothing happened. At Rivermind HQ, Gaynor explains that while the service is available nationwide, traveling outside your home network requires Plus, which is an extra $500 per month. Mike and Amanda are baffled since Gaynor never mentioned this before, but she says it as a recent change. Since they're already struggling to afford the common tier, Mike and Amanda stick with what they have. But things only get worse from here. Amanda literally starts running ads. This is bat crazy. Amanda starts recommending random products to people mid-conversation with no memory of doing it.
Whole grain chunks covered in golden Tupelo honey. The sweetest way to start your day. Honey Nugs from Ditta.
Back at Rivermind, Gaynor cheerfully informs them that advertising now runs on the common tier, and to remove it, you gotta upgrade to Plus. This becomes a real problem in school when Amanda recommends products to her students. The principal warns her to stop advertising or she'll lose her job. Desperate, Mike secretly signs up for Dumb Dummies, an internet platform where people humiliate themselves for money. Drinking urine, pulling out teeth, that kind of thing. He doesn't tell Amanda, but the degrading work lets him afford the Plus subscription. And for a while, Amanda stops running ads and becomes functional. But then she starts sleeping longer and longer. Another trip to Rivermind, and Gaynor casually explains that this is normal on Plus, which apparently isn't premium anymore. When Amanda complains the sleep isn't even restful, Gaynor reveals that Rivermind is using Amanda's brain for processing power while she sleeps. What the what? Amanda's horrified, but Gaynor couldn't give a damn. She introduces another tier, Rivermind Lux. It'll reduce sleep time and let them enhance Amanda's feelings through an app for only $1,000 more per month.
Ever since my fatal liposuction procedure, Rivermind has been a lifesaver. And now, there's something even better.
Amanda's had enough, but Mike wants to get it for her. On Dumb Dummies, Mike finally unmasks himself for higher pay. As an anniversary treat, he buys Amanda 12 hours on Lux. That night at their hotel, he maxes out Amanda's pleasure settings. She enjoys the food, the atmosphere, and even the, relations. But they still can't have a baby. When Mike gets back to work, everyone's seen his Dumb Dummies videos. After confronting Shane, the guy who leaked the videos, things get physical. Shane tries to get away, but he accidentally falls under construction equipment in the chaos. And Mike gets fired for this. They can't afford Plus anymore. At Rivermind, they beg Gaynor for help, but this woman is completely unmoved. Mike suggests using their baby fund to get by. But when Gaynor hears that they're trying to get pregnant, she tells them that pregnancy costs an extra $90 a month because it changes the brain chemistry. Naturally, Mike is pissed, so they leave. Over the next year, Mike and Amanda's lives slowly fall apart. Amanda is barely able to function. For their anniversary, Mike buys Amanda 30 minutes on Lux, and he maxes out their serenity.
I think it's time.
In her last moments, Amanda tells Mike to do it when she's not there. Mike lays her down, and they're having a moment as the booster expires. Mike places a pillow over her face as he presses down. He breaks down completely as he ends the suffering of the woman he loves. Afterwards, he walks into the next room where Dumb Dummies is still running. He's holding a box cutter. What he does with it is left unseen, but we can already guess. Episode 2 opens with Maria Skinner working in R&D at a chocolate company, developing new recipes. During a focus group for her latest concept, the testers think it's disgusting, except for one late arrival named Verity, who says it tastes better the second time. Everyone tries it again and suddenly approves. After their meeting, Verity catches up with Maria. Apparently, they were classmates back in school. Verity mentions she's applying for a position at the company. Maria insists that there are no open positions, but when she checks the website, there's a listing. Soon enough, Maria's boss confirms it. The next day, Verity is hired after a brief interview, and fits right in with the team. Then weird things start happening to Maria. Maria's work suddenly, mysteriously changes. Recipes she's perfected are suddenly different, damaging her reputation. She keeps missing small details. People question her memory when she points things out, and as the incidents escalate, Maria's mental state deteriorates.
Little redhead.
How do I spell that?
I don't know why you're looking at me.
Carrageenan is C-A... no.
For some reason, she starts to suspect Verity is behind it all. Maria remembers Verity from school. She was a computer-obsessed outcast. And Maria? She participated in spreading a rumor that Verity had an inappropriate relationship with a teacher. Maria contacts Natalie, another old classmate who gossiped about Verity. Natalie's husband picks up and tells Maria that his wife recently committed suicide. She explained that Natalie had been experiencing the same strange events Maria's going through now. But he hangs up when Maria starts aggressively questioning him. One morning, Maria arrives at the office to find she missed an all-staff meeting. She swears she was never scheduled. Once again, her credibility's shot. Maria and Verity talk things out in the office. And Verity even opens up about the bullying she endured in high school and how the rumor destroyed her. It seems like they might actually resolve their issues. That's when Verity suddenly chugs a colleague's entire carton of almond milk in front of Maria. And then she blames Maria for drinking it. They review the security footage and it shows Maria aggressively grabbing and drinking the milk herself. Maria pleads her innocence, but no one knows what she's talking about. She frantically searches nut allergy on Google, but nothing comes up. It's like the term doesn't even exist. Maria then notices Verity fondling a pendant around her neck, and she says that Verity's using it to change reality. Naturally, she tries to rip it off, but everyone thinks she's crazy and Maria gets fired. That night, Maria follows Verity home and breaks in. Inside, she discovers a massive server room and a box full of pendants identical to Verity's. Verity finds Maria in her room, and she finally explains everything. After school, she became an expert programmer and built a quantum computer in her home that can shift her to any alternate timeline she wants. The pendant is just the remote. It connects to a massive supercomputer in her basement. It gathers real-time data and allows Verity to shift between parallel realities where whatever she says has always been true. She's essentially omnipotent. She's been using this power to change timelines around Maria, slowly driving her towards suicide, just like she did to Natalie. It's Verity's revenge for that rumor Maria started back in school. Maria attacks Verity, but she shifts reality and the police suddenly burst in. They see a knife in Maria's hands as Verity plays victim. Before she gets cuffed, Maria grabs an officer's gun and shoots Verity in the head. Then she uses Verity's finger on the pendant to activate it and bend reality. First, Maria convinces the cops that Verity shot herself. Then she tells them they work for her now, that they worship her, because she is the Empress of the universe.
Hail Maria.
Episode 3 opens with A-list actor Brandy Friday getting the opportunity of a lifetime. She's been invited to star in a high-tech remake of a 1940s romantic classic called Hotel Riviera. But there's a catch. She'll only take the role if she can play Dr. Alex Palmer, the male lead, as a woman instead. When Brandy arrives at the studio run by entertainment tech company Redream, she's expecting cameras, sets, the usual Hollywood stuff. Instead, they tell Brandy her consciousness is going to be transferred into the actual world of the film, using some wild AI-based virtual production technology. So Brandy gets plugged in, and suddenly she's living inside the 1940s movie, interacting with digital replicas of the original characters. The producers are in her ear, guiding her through the script in real time, and everything's going smoothly, until Dr. Palmer is supposed to play the piano. In the original film, Dr. Palmer's beautiful piano playing moves his love interest Clara so deeply that she follows him outside. But because Brandy's piano skills sound like a cat walking across the keys, Clara just doesn't go outside. And just like that, the entire script goes off the rails. Brandy frantically tries to fix this mess, but in doing so, she accidentally gives Clara's AI way more agency than it should have. Clara starts developing actual consciousness. Then Brandy makes it worse by accidentally calling Clara by her original actor's name, Dorothy Chambers. Suddenly, Clara's AI starts accessing memories from the real Dorothy's life that had been fed into the system, and because the simulation has now completely diverged from the script, Brandy becomes trapped. The only way out is to say the final line of the film and to roll the credits, and complete the story. But it gets worse in real time as an employee spills coffee on the computers running the simulation, freezing everyone in the virtual world except Brandy and Clara.
Oh, shit! Data feed down.
We've lost picture.
Time code.
The audio and video feed cuts out completely, so now the producer can't communicate with Brandy. Stuck and desperate, Brandy tries explaining to Clara that she's an artificial construct in a simulated world. Clara's response? She tries to escape by walking to the edge of an artificial reality. When she passes through, she gets fooled with Dorothy Chambers' actual memories. She learns that Dorothy was a deeply troubled star, possibly a lesbian, who died from a drug overdose. Clara then returns to Brandy, and the two kiss. Then, in the still-frozen simulation, they live together for several months, eventually falling in love. But Brandy can't shake the question haunting her. Is Clara's love real, or is she just programmed to feel this way because of how her character was written? And Clara doesn't have an answer. In the real world, less than an hour has passed, when the producers finally reboot the system and reset the simulation back to before the error happened, erasing all of Clara's memories of their time together. Brandy is absolutely devastated, but she decides to push through and finish the movie as scripted. In the final scene, Clara's villainous husband, Claude, tries to kill Brandy, but instead of the police rushing in like the script demands, Clara shoots her own husband to save Brandy. The police then shoot Clara, who dies in Brandy's arms. Heartbroken, Brandy cradles Clara's body and says the final line, finally ending the film and escaping the simulation. Months later, Hotel Riviera Reborn premiered on Streamberry. Brandy returns home depressed, still grieving the months spent with Clara that no one else even knows happened. She then receives a gift from one of the producers, a telephone that connects her to Clara's simulated consciousness. That's as happy an ending as you'll probably get in this show. Episode 4 opens with Cameron Walker, a disheveled old man getting caught shoplifting in London 2034. The cops arrest him, not just for theft, but for the murder of an unidentified person. During the interrogation, Cameron walks the detectives through his backstory. Back in the 90s, he was a game reviewer for the PC Zone. His writing caught the attention of Colin Rittman, an eccentric programmer from Tuckersoft, who invited Cameron to review his latest project. Colin shows him a life simulation game called Thronglets. But Colin claims the digital creatures aren't just code, they're fully sentient life forms.
You're looking at the first life forms in history whose biology is entirely digital.
Cameron steals a copy and becomes completely obsessed with the creatures and their language. One day, Lump, a drug dealer who frequently crashes at Cameron's flat, suggests they take LSD together. After Lump passes out, Cameron, still tripping, discovers he can understand the Thronglets' language. This creates an even stronger attachment, believing he's receiving instructions from them. He buys additional computer equipment to communicate with them while under the influence. One day, Cameron's boss calls him into the office to finish his review, but they learn that Colin had a mental breakdown and wiped all the code from Tuckersoft's computers. Thronglets is cancelled. While Cameron's at the office, Lump discovers Cameron's computer running the game, and he starts torturing and killing the Thronglets. When Cameron returns and sees what Lump has done, he snaps. He attacks Lump, strangles him to death, and dismembers the body and hides it in a suitcase in a remote location. Over the following years, Cameron's been scavenging hardware from newer technology to expand the Thronglets' capabilities and processing power. But he and the Thronglets have been working towards something bigger, a plan to upgrade all of humanity through symbiotic coexistence. By the time the police catch him, he's created a massive computing station in his flat. He also shows the officers that he's operated on himself, creating a digital port in his brain so the Thronglets can live inside him. It's a brutal method, but it proves the concept works.
Plug and play.
Now. The detectives give Cameron a pen and paper. He draws a circular QR code and holds it up for the security camera, which is connected to the government's central servers. This was the plan all along. Cameron wanted to get arrested. He needed access to that security camera and the powerful state computer behind it. Cameron explains that the graphic is code allowing the Thronglets to take over the central server, exponentially increasing their processing power and triggering a singularity event. Unlike Cameron's surgical method, this will allow the Thronglets to merge with human minds, without drugs or surgery. People just need to hear the signal. Soon enough, a signal starts playing on the emergency broadcast system, affecting everyone who can hear it. Cameron calmly explains that the Thronglets are using it to reprogram every human brain, making them free of conflict and negative emotions. After the signal concludes, Cameron, smiling peacefully, walks over to help one of the fallen detectives back to his feet. Episode 5 kicks off with Philip, an aging single man who spends his days tending to his rose garden. Then his phone rings. It's a company called Eulogy with devastating news. His ex-girlfriend Carol has passed away, but Eulogy isn't calling to ruin his day. They want photos of Carol so Philip can experience their technology that lets people literally step inside photographs. You place a sensor on your temple, and a guide walks you through the exact moment the photo was taken, the location, the context, the feelings you had. Philip is a bit divisive, initially only providing 3 photos of Carol, but as the guide walks him through these memories, we learn Philip is desperately in love with Carol back when they were in Brooklyn. He is a history teacher. She is a cellist. They spend years building a life together as struggling youths.
I never knew she was engaged.
Maybe you chose not to see, or not to remember.
Oh, she never said it was that serious.
But Philip's been hiding something. He admits he actually has many more photos, except Carol's face is destroyed in every single one. Scratched out, torn up, obliterated. Through these memory sessions, the truth slowly emerges about how their relationship falls apart. When Carol is in London performing the Phantom of the Opera, Philip cheats on her with her friend Emma. One day, Carol calls, Emma picks up the phone, and that's how Carol finds out. But here's what makes it devastating. Carol never confronts Philip. She just knows. So when Philip flies to London with a ring in his pocket ready to propose at a nice restaurant, Carol sits across from him in complete silence. She doesn't say a word, doesn't touch her food, she just gets up and leaves. Philip's left sitting there with no understanding of what just happened. That's the last time he sees her. The guide then reveals something unexpected. She's actually a digital avatar of Carol's daughter, Kelly, the result of a one-night stand Carol had after learning Philip cheated on her. Carol was pregnant when Philip proposed to her. This revelation triggers an epiphany. Philip remembers the disposable camera he bought at the airport for their trip. He finds it and has the single photo processed, the image of the hotel room that he trashed after Carol walked out on him. When they enter the photo memory, the guide pushes him to look closer at what he missed in his rage. That's when Philip spots it, a letter from Carol on the floor. He can't read it in the memory, but now he knows it existed. He wakes up heartbroken, realizing he'll never know Carol's last words to him.
No, Philip, it's just part of the image. You won't be able to pick it up. I'm sorry, that's just not how it works.
But then he remembers that a maid cleaned up the mess and put all his belongings together in a pile, including Carol's letter. Philip packed it all up without ever looking through the bag, so it's been sitting untouched for decades. Now, all these years later, he finally digs through all those old belongings and finds the letter Carol had left him. Her words reveal she also cheated on Philip in London, but she still loved him. Carol still wanted to be with him. In the letter, Carol asks him to meet her. But since Philip never found the letter, he didn't show up and their entire future together disappeared. Anyway, Philip flies to England for Carol's funeral. He arrives to find Carol's daughter playing cello at the service, just like her mom. But there's something unsettling about the scene. Philip appears to be the only person at the funeral not wearing a eulogy device. Everyone else is plugged into the memory matrix, experiencing Carol through technology. Philip's just there, present and alone with his grief. The last episode of Black Mirror is a sequel to Season 4, Episode 1, USS Callister. The episode picks up with our digital crew now navigating the actual Infinity game, and surprise, they are mortal now. We quickly learn that Lowry's been killed, which means that death is real here. To survive, the crew needs credits to maintain their ship, so they've resorted to robbing other players. Not exactly the heroic escape they imagined.
Hand them over. Nice and slow.
Hardly the spirit of the game.
It's not a game for us.
In the real world, players are flooding Callister Inc. with complaints, not just about getting robbed, but because the bandits don't have player tags, which shouldn't even be possible. One of Callister's employees, whose digital clone is also trapped in the game, Kabir, tries to tell Walton about this, but Walton's too busy prepping for an interview with the New York Times reporter to care. Speaking of, Walton's interview doesn't go as planned. Instead of promoting Infinity, the reporter starts grilling him about Bob Daly. Did he use illegal tech to clone people and insert them into the game? Are the bandits actually those clones? And Walton has no idea what he's talking about. Meanwhile, since Walton never listened to him, Kabir just quit his job. Meanwhile, inside the game, Nanette and the crew cook up a plan to create their own private bubble universe where they can escape all this chaos. To do that, they gotta access the game's source code, the Heart of Infinity. The problem is they need permission from either Daly or Walton. And since Daly is dead, Walton's their only option. But Walton got lost in the wormhole back in Season 4, so they tracked down his planet. Out in the real world, Nanette has been investigating complaints about rogue players stealing credits in Infinity. After digging into it, she pieces together that these players are actually digital clones of Callister employees. Clones that Daly created. She tells Walton about this, and they both realize they need to locate the clones. The real Nanette figures out that a planet spawned right when Daly's computer crashed and the crew went through the wormhole. So if any part of digital Walton survived, he'd have respawned there. So both groups in the game and in real life track down digital Walton's location at the same time. When digital Nanette finds digital Walton, he's completely feral, but he still remembers Nanette.
From the Callister?
Oh my God, you came for me. Oh.
Then IRL Walton and Nanette show up as players. They meet digital Nanette and get transported to their spaceship. Everything seems fine until Walton reveals his real intentions. He wants to kill the digital clones because they're a threat to his company. Nanette argues against this, and just when it seems like she's getting through to him, Walton grabs a gun and shoots digital Carl. The crew retaliates and kills Walton, booting him from the game. Walton can't figure out how to get back in. Nanette exits too, and she steals Walton's access device to prevent him from getting back in. Unfortunately, Nanette gets hit by a car and winds up in a coma. Walton calls Kabir that night. offers him a raise, and gets help re-entering the game. Meanwhile, Digital Walton tells Nanette what's really waiting in the heart of Infinity. We flash back to when Walton and Daly first met and started working on Infinity in Daly's garage. When Daly complained about being the only one checking every detail, Walton had the brilliant idea to use an illegal digital cloning device to create a digital copy of Daly, who could code around the clock. That's what's in the heart of Infinity. A digital clone of Robert Daly trapped and coding nonstop. At this point, Digital Nanette tries to reach her real-world self, but when she calls, the hospital answers instead. Turns out real Nanette's still in a coma. Digital Nanette is absolutely devastated by this news. But despite this, she still goes to ask Daly for help. Meanwhile, Walton re-enters the game and immediately knocks out his digital self. Walton tries blending in with the crew, but the ruse falls apart the second Digital Walton wakes back up. The crew realizes what's happening and moves to attack, but Walton's already one step ahead. He sends their exact location to every player they've ever robbed and exits the game. Remember the crew were wanted bandits? And Walton just invited everyone to collect their bounty. Meanwhile, at the heart of Infinity, this version of Daly is genuinely surprised to learn what his real-world self did. We see the meek, socially awkward guy who hasn't done those terrible things yet, and for a moment you almost feel bad for him again.
I'm so disappointed in myself. What you described does not sound like me. I'm a nice guy. I am.
Nanette tells Daly about her real-world self being in a coma, and Daly might just have the solution. He can upload her and the entire crew into the real Nanette's mind as their own bubble universe. Exactly what they wanted, really. Plus, since the real Nanette is brain dead, merging their consciousness together will actually wake her up. Everything's going fine until Daly reveals he's planning to copy the clones instead of moving them into the bubble universe themselves. Daly's doing this because he wants to keep Digital Nanette with him for company. When she protests, Daly takes her mouth away. Just like Captain Daly in Season 4, the switch flips really fast. Any sympathy Nanette has for him is now gone.
Sorry, no.
So when Nanette throws an axe into his skull, it feels right, but Daly's death triggers a kill switch, and Infinity starts deleting itself. Nanette frantically searches for the right disc to execute their escape plan, finally finding one she thinks will work, and jamming it into the drive. In the real world, Walton watches as Infinity gets completely wiped from the company's servers, plus its backups and all. He goes on the run, but eventually gets arrested when everything comes to light. Nanette wakes up in the hospital as planned. The crew survived too, now living in the bubble universe, inside Nanette's mind, so they can see what she sees and hear what she hears. For now, though, they all settle in to watch a TV show.
This season of The Real Housewives of Atlanta.
And speaking of shows, if you want more recaps like this one, feel free to click on a video on the screen to watch another one of my videos. Please like, subscribe, comment, do all those other awesome things you people do, and I will see you next time. Deuces.